Mod Goblin, welcome back to the Sae Bae cast. How you doing, man?
I am good. I'm so much older than the last one. I'm starting to feel it. I've crested the 30 mark.
Hey, it's not just you, man.
I'm
It's not
good.
just you. Now you're reminding me of my own mortality. I'm turning 31 in a couple weeks. That's insane to me.
Yeah, you old as hell. Not
Yeah.
me. How are you doing? You good?
Yeah, doing great over here. I mean, a lot of changes coming my way. I mentioned before the recording, obviously moving in with my girlfriend, moving states entirely. So I've moved states before, but that's nothing new. But living with a girl is definitely something that I have not had check marked off, in my 20s or anything. So this is a huge new chapter for me, and I'm super excited. She's very excited. I don't know. I think we're gonna have a good time though, because she's a scaper. I'm a scaper as well. She has a maxed Iron Woman, so we're gonna be doing a lot of gaming, I think. And I'm just so looking forward to it. And it's like the best time of the year too. Summertime. It's gonna be hot there. It's just energy is in a good state right now. I'm feeling great.
I hate summertime. I'm already sweating. I don't even know how warm it is for me. It's like 18 degrees and I'm just off a dog walk and I'm sweating. It's awful. Like 32 on the weekend. Ugh. I don't know what that is in freedom units. I'm sorry, but
Yeah, I only use freedom units here, unfortunately. We obviously have a lot to cover today, and I'm very honored to get you on the mic. I love these one-on-one conversations. So there's obviously so much going on. There's a lot of discussion, just about so many different topics. I see it on Reddit. I mean, we have all these suggestions for like Raids 4 rewards, all these suggestions for like skill reworks. I know I hear so much about the smithing rework lately. And we also have been hearing some sort of complaints about a sort of like content drought, which personally, as somebody that actually likes to have a game that's not changing so rapidly, I've actually enjoyed the quote unquote drought. I wouldn't even consider it a drought personally, but I want to hear your take on that. I mean, it seems like a lot of the community is bothered by the fact that there was seemingly two temporary game modes back to back, and it feels like, again, to some that are not keeping up to date on every single blog post, they see it as they haven't really done much to the main game over the past 5 months. How can you respond to that as a CM?
I mean, it's hard to disagree with, right? I think it's fair. Obviously, there are a huge number of people that just really enjoy the temporary game modes. I think like a lot of people stuck with demonic packs longer than they usually do. A lot of people stuck with Deadman Annihilation early in the year, like way longer than they usually do as well. But I mean, it's kind of inarguable that it's been a quieter like start to the year in terms of main game content, right? And I think that's a learning that we've taken on board. That I think just having like big plates spinning with Blood Moon Rises, the Fractured Archive, or Raids 4 is what everybody calls it, but I get yelled at if I call it Raids 4 internally. Moded doesn't like it. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just a learning, right? Is that like we probably could have, should have, kind of approached this year a little bit differently, and I don't think it's something that will be likely to repeat. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think making mistakes is like only as bad, or like it's only bad if you just don't like take anything from them. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think it's fine to screw up a little bit. Like, it sucks, if you're feeling like you're not getting enough content at the start of the year. But it's like, we get it. We see all the comments and stuff. We take it on board. We go and like chat about it as like a whole team, etc. I think it would only be really bad if we went into 2027 and we were like, yeah, we're just going to do that again, which I don't think any of us want to do because it doesn't feel good for us either.
Yeah.
And obviously there's like big stuff to look forward to, right? Like Blood Moon Rises is insane. Like, it's such a sick quest. I can't wait for that to be in front of people. The Fractured Archive is also, I mean, and I'm sure we'll dive into, I can't really talk much about Blood Moon Rises because I don't work on it, and I'm sure we'll get into Fractured Archive later, but also completely insane, so sick. Summer Sweep Up has been the absolute bane of my life, just non-stop back and forth with Arcane and other devs about every point ever. And then, here's another suggestion, or the suggestions about something that we already had written down, and now I don't want to do it. Like, all kinds of stuff like that. So there's like big stuff happening. Obviously, sailing has been undergoing a lot of like change right now to get it into kind of like a stable state and not just leave it in a state where people have like a whole bunch of complaints. And I think the team are doing like a pretty good job of like addressing a lot of the key areas and getting that into like a much better state so that it can feel like something we kind of like add to occasionally rather than like bulking out a lot like in bulk like at once. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like you guys have actually done a pretty good. I mean, there's a few different branching off things I want to talk about. What I mean, I guess I'll hit on the first one, which is just simply the fact that we do have Blood Moon Rises and Raids 4 coming out. I just don't see this temporary little like 5-month segment as a drought necessarily, because I just understand there are two massive releases coming this year, and those obviously take time. And we're right now in the thick of leagues, you know, so it's like these are massive projects. I don't even know how, first of all, props to those that work on leagues. That is just incredible how you can make a temporary game mode that feels so entirely different with all these new systems, all these new. I don't even know. Like you're reworking old bosses into new bosses on this temporary game. This is not just a temporary game mode where there's just like relics and that's the extent of it and everything's sped up. It's like there is so many little intricacies in this and so much balancing, and that takes a lot of
Has
dev
its own
time.
challenges, right? Like there's definitely kind of like this I think feeling that you have to up the ante like every
Yeah.
single year, which is why you get like I think the pack tree was so successful though. Obviously not without its like problems, but I imagine like the next one will probably develop on that in some way, right?
Yeah.
It's just that like kind of like constant scope creep that makes it like a bit of a terrifying project to revisit every year because it's like it has to be bigger than the last one, and the last one was really big.
Yeah. It's impressive. It really is. I mean, I'm not even the one, you know, I'm not a player that's interacting with the content for the most part. I logged into it and then I was just immediately like, I want to go back to my hardcore. But I see it. I'm watching it. I'm noticing how much time and effort and attention is paid to this. And it is just mind boggling to see. So, yeah. Anyway, so then of course Raids 4, that I can't even imagine how massive those projects are. When I think of, for example, Toa, and just the sheer amount of balancing that goes into it. Like make the content, that's one massive step, obviously, just make the content, which is insane, but then also balancing it with like a 1 through 8 man scale with a like infinite amount of variations of invocations. I'm just like that sounds like a nightmare to solve, like
Thankfully, we're
a
not doing
true
that this
nightmare.
time. But
Sorry.
thankfully, we're not doing invocations this
Yes,
time
thank God.
because you're not wrong in
Yeah.
your assessment that they're a nightmare.
Yeah, that just seems. I mean, again, it was a huge hurdle, I imagine, to go over, and probably like a fun challenge to kind of balance that right. But dear God, I mean, just balancing a solo encounter is difficult, but balancing now for 1 through 8, I think, is also just a huge hurdle to overcome. So just super impressive. And the fact that Raids 4 is coming out this year with Blood Moon Rises as well, that's a lot on your guys' plate. So I understand the drought personally, and I think it's totally fine. And I also like it when I can kind of just chill and not feel like this sort of FOMO with so much content coming out nonstop. I feel like maybe I'm a little bit in like the minority in that case, but I don't know. So I want to touch on sailing now because you did mention sailing. We obviously have seen problems with it, but for the most part, I was a huge fan of it. I think my first video on sailing was like 2 weeks after release because I was busy, but I was just doing a lot of AFK salvaging and other things. And my first impression was just incredible. This is such an amazing addition to the game. I was very hesitant for like the 2 years leading up to it, especially as the beta, like that first sort of beta or alpha, whatever it was, came around. And I was very concerned because we're only getting to try out the rafts and we're only getting to try out just like the most basic crappy gameplay of it, and I was like, this is not looking good. But I tried to keep somewhat of an open mind. It was kind of hard, I can't lie, but I was very impressed just by the whole thing. And obviously there's been some issues with it, and you guys have done a great job, I think, of just sort of gauging all the feedback. Obviously it takes time to assess it, and I want to just ask you, how do you feel about sailing actually officially being in the game now for like half a year, and what you have to say about the sort of hurdles that you guys are still overcoming, especially in regards to ship combat?
I'm probably like the worst person to ask. I'm quite far removed from sailing. Like generally, I've had extremely the one time that I was asked to get involved with sailing was I think Modlight had some holiday booked in, and it was the XP rebalancing, like right after release. It was the worst 2 days of my career. Like it was awful. So I've not really been like too close with sailing. I think it's insane what the team have pulled off, though. I
Yeah.
think the discourse leading up to it was obviously extremely charged and like super emotional all the time. I don't think it ruined the game. I don't think nobody died. I think it's done really well. For me personally, I'm not like the hugest fan of sailing, and like that, the team are like aware of. There's not like a hot take or anything like, but there's loads of stuff in the game that I'm not a big fan of, and I think that's normal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think a lot of people these days, I get the vibe sometimes from a lot of people that every piece of content needs to be liked by everyone, otherwise it's not worth like releasing, etc. And I just don't think you make interesting content if everybody likes it. Like,
Totally.
it's
Yeah.
like such a broad game anyway, right? So it's like I'm not the biggest sailing fan. I think some of the stuff that it like leads onto is kind of cool, and it's nice to have like motivators to engage with it and maybe like have your mind changed as you train it over time, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think what the team pulled off is crazy. Like the tech is insane. The sheer volume of stuff that got added, even like the kind of like auxiliary stuff, right? Like just all of the islands and other methods that have kind of sprung off the back of it, and then the kind of stuff, I guess, the groundwork that it lays for things that you could do to it in the future. I think it was an insane project. Really difficult, obviously, to navigate, right? With it being old school's first new skill, it's kind of. I think everyone's going to have like really strong opinions, and it's going to be difficult to get to a place where it feels like chill. But
Yeah.
I do think broadly that a lot of the discourse I feel like I read about sailing now, as someone who's not specifically looking at it personally, because it's not really a project I'm on, but it feels a lot more like focused, a lot more specific, and the critiques definitely focus on things that feel like more actionable than just like broad sweeps. Like I don't think we should have a new skill, or this isn't a skill, etc., etc. I think people are kind of over that, and it's more just nice to see people I feel like collaborating on what
I,
could you do to it to make it like the best that it could be, kind of thing, right?
yeah, and I feel like it just takes time to get familiar with something. Any new piece of content in this game, especially for those veteran players that are a little bit more um in lack of a better term, just autistic. I mean, the fact that they like this deep familiarity with
Whoa.
the game, there is a huge, obviously, group of players that just want the game to feel like home, want to log into something that feels familiar, and so something as huge as an entire like area expansion. I mean, the whole ocean is now open. That can feel very scary to those players that just want to feel this deep familiarity from old school RuneScape. And I think you guys were able to masterfully pull that off without making the skill feel essential to train. And it's also a skill, I think. I mean, is there any skill that we're looking at in the game that we're like, yeah, I love that skill. Like, I just love it. It's like nobody, especially when you just release one skill and you're only focused on that. A lot of players are obviously going to get bored of that. If mining came out and you just had to mine to 99 to reclaim your max cape, like Jesus Christ, that'd be terrible. So it's like I understand the problems with just releasing one skill and then having so many players be max and trying to go get their max cape back, and then just the sheer focus on one activity for that many hours can just make the skill feel worse in a sort of way. But I feel like looking outside of that, looking from a bird's eye view of sailing being added, especially because I was able to make a new count at the beginning of this year and experience the beginning of sailing with all the other skills being very low level, and just training it up simultaneously felt very rewarding and actually like a reasonable path to go down to like make some money on my Iron Man and just to like, I don't know, just do new things that feel like it's interwoven in the world a little bit. And there was like some items that I wanted to get, like the rosewood blowpipe, and then there's like extra fish, the high healing fish that feels good, but it never felt essential to do. It just is some sort of side project you can do, and it just feels very well balanced. So bravo to the team. I know you were not directly involved in it, and but I'm just, that was a good sign because that was really make or break. And I think the team understood that as well. Like if you come out with a brand new skill, especially at the first brand new skill in the old school, you got to execute perfectly. And this was a huge undertaking. So again, I'm just very proud of what the team was able to put together. Even though it's not perfect, it feels very old school. So any,
Huge props.
yeah.
I think it's also just kind of like the impossible problem a little bit when it comes to like interweaving of you kind of want it to tie into more places, but then if it ties into too many places or has too much cool reward space, then it feels mandatory, and then all of the people that don't like it feel like they have to do it, and then they grow to resent it.
Yep.
It's kind of like a delicate balancing act that I think we have ahead of us in the future, but that's a future problem. Like,
Yeah, yeah. But again, like as of right now, it feels very fair because there is a little bit of incentive to do it, but nothing is absolutely like I need to go do sailing. God damn it, people. There's a lot of
yeah.
like sailing pewers out there, and they're chugging along just fine. They're doing great, unless they want their max key back, then you got to suck it up, I guess.
I also think it's helped
Yeah.
by like thermonuclear meltdown hot take. The salvaging is still so OP. It's way too good. But it means that if you don't like sailing, you don't really have to do it. You can just salvage, and I think that kind of does help it for a lot of people that see it as like a chore to tick off just to get their max game back, etc.
Yeah,
But
no,
yeah,
I
I
actually
don't
think
know.
that was
People are
probably a
gonna
good
hate me in the
decision.
comments, but it's just I have friends who like, I went to the shops for like half an hour and I came back like all my salvaged. I'm like, cool, dude, that doesn't look good. That sounds bad. Like, but
Yeah.
it's what it
Yeah.
is. Different strokes for different folks.
And you know what? I want to touch on that actually right now before we
Oh
move on
no,
to where
don't
I
make
was
me
gonna
elaborate.
listen. The game really okay. Let's look at the game 10 years ago. 10 years ago, if you saw any activity where you could AFK for more than like 3 minutes, well, first of all, the log out timer was 5 minutes, so you were just automatically logged out at 5 minutes. There was no real bypassing that unless you were like under combat. I think maybe it was 10 minutes at that point. I actually can't remember if it was still 5 minutes or not, but that it felt like there was an underlying sort of feeling across higher level players that like, hey, nothing should be that AFK in this game. Like a minute AFK is plenty, nothing beyond that really. In fact, I believe at one point the AFK timer was 1 minute, like way back. I think it was probably before old school, maybe the first little bit of old school potentially,
way,
but
way back in the day, yeah. Like your
okay.
dial-up cutting out for a little
Yeah.
bit, and then you just getting logged out and dying.
Which, by the way, still happens on mobile on my iPhone. I switch apps for a minute and I'm logged out again. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I
I know
don't
that's
think
an
that's an
Apple
us
thing.
thing. I think that's an Apple Store thing.
It still pisses me off though. They need to. Oh God. But I want to ask you about just your overall sentiment about the fact that I feel like most of the player base is pretty much on board now with very, very idle aspects of the game, like star mining, karambwan fishing, redwoods, ironwoods, salvaging.
We're 20 minutes in. You're asking me for all of my like super spicy, awful elitist takes
I'm trying
that
to get
like
you
don't
warmed up so
inform
we can
my
go to the
work.
baby stuff afterward. This is trying to get people's attention.
No,
People listening,
I,
they need to hear the
so
hot takes.
I guess to some extent, like I feel like the whole debacle of like Duke mining into stars getting changed into stars getting changed again was a bit of a Pandora's box for this kind of stuff. For me personally, I feel like it's probably healthier to just make active methods more engaging or interesting for people than it is to add these like crazy AFK methods. But I'm completely on board with, I'm 30. I work 9 till 5:30, and then I get off work and I walk my dog and I have my dinner, and then I have the rest of the evening to hang out with my partner, hang out with my friends, etc. And like it can be tough to find the time, and if you feel like you like really want to make progress, like I completely get it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think a lot of these methods I'm personally not like the biggest fan of. I think just because they're kind of like infinitely efficient, right? Like they're so AFK that the times that you do them are times when you wouldn't otherwise be playing the game. Therefore, you're gaining infinitely more than you would otherwise be. I don't. For me personally, it's not what I love about like old school, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I'm completely on board with like loads of people liking it, and I think as long as they're in like a healthy enough spot, and there's like enough active stuff that competes with them, that like feels worthwhile, I think it's fine. Um, I just
Yeah.
don't want, I don't like the idea of like every single skill having something like that, and then like old school kind of becomes this thing where you just like passively max while you work a 9 to 5 and then log on for PVM. But if that's what people wind up wanting over time, etc., then who knows? I'm not judge, jury, and executioner. I'm a monkey with a keyboard, basically. I talk to devs and write blogs.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I don't know.
By
I
the
think
way,
it's just complicated, right? Like,
yeah. And it's like the player base is ever evolving. I mean, I've evolved as a player, just kind of seeing how the game is, how just age in general. Like you mentioned the fact that like you're 30, I'm turning 31 soon. Like we're not just children anymore playing this. We're not just in our early 20s with a lot of free time. I still have a lot of free time, luckily, but like a lot of people have families and kids and careers, and they still want a game. And I think it is important to keep them in the ecosystem, sort of, and so whatever that means with maintaining some sort of balance, I think is appropriate. I guess I fall in line with what you said as well, where just make some of the more active training methods more rewarding, more engaging, more incentive to do it, because I feel like there's so many players right now that will just never train mining in any active way because they're star mining. So it's like you have this one skill that feels like you said, just like it's basically fully zero timed in a way, because anytime you wouldn't be playing, you can just log in and do mining on a star for 7-minute AFK. So like it's I mean, it's fine. Like I like my stars here and there. It's kind of nice, but yeah, it's sort of like, do you keep expanding on every skill, where every sort of skill can be that? And I think me and you align there, at least currently, that probably should not be the case. But I think you guys have struck a decent balance.
mining in an example is so rough as well, because it's like and I know mining is quite like hated. I'm a bit of a mining enjoyer. I think mining, out of like all of the gathering skills, has like some of the craziest diversity of like viable and like worthwhile methods. But
Yeah.
people will say it sucks because you only do stars, and then people like it sucks to mine like coal and like classic ores, etc. So the skill sucks. But it's like gem mining, like blast mining, like Volcano, volcanic mine, the new stuff in well, not even that new anymore, but the stuff in oh my god, the calcified rocks. I can't remember the name of the Cantorum.
Yep.
Amethyst,
That's where I'm at right
like shale motherlode mine, like this, like even just the old classics of like power mining iron, power mining granite. Like I'm a fan of like 3T4G. There's obviously like 4T3G now, ever since like TOE release, etc.
now. Mm-hmm.
Like there's so much stuff. I think like in particular, to be fair, the volcanic mine with I don't know how to make like volcanic mine more like palatable, but I'm the biggest VM shill on the planet. I think it's so sick. I also think there are solo methods that aren't. There was a really wonderful Reddit post a while ago actually that kind of like really demystified solo VM for a lot of people, which didn't really add like much new to like a video that Wooks made like 4 years prior. But I don't know. It's just one of those things, right? Or it's like star mining so good that everything else just like looks bad, and it's like kind of difficult to like navigate without just like buffing everything.
Yeah.
And then like when you're sitting down as a team, like, oh, should just all of mining get like a blanket XP buff just because it's like kind of hard to like justify a little bit.
I think if I were to just offer, and I'm not suggesting do this mainly because any nerf feels bad.
Come on, mention the gnome cube.
No. I won't mention it yet. We'll get there. No.
Yeah.
I'll try to resist. No, I'm just thinking to myself, why does it give so many gems? Like it's just an insane amount of gems. Like I'm thinking to myself, if star mining had no reward other than the XP, people would still flock to it like crazy. But the fact that you're also getting these just insane amounts of gems, especially on an iron, it's just I mean, it feels great. Don't get me wrong. It feels nice getting all these gems, but then you go to like Motherlode Mine and it's like 10 golden nuggets for a bag of gems. And it's like those 10 golden nuggets took me like almost an hour to get. I guess technically in a way, star mining is the same sort of rate. I think you guys actually probably balanced it off that, but it doesn't feel like you actually did anything. So there's like a difference of these prices. I mean, if I could go to Motherlode Mine, for example, or even the Mining Guild, you can also buy those gem bags there, or like bag of gems. They're just too expensive. And so it feels like, I'm really incentivized to go do star mining because I just want gems. Like I want a bunch of gems. That's like a really nice way to do it, especially early game. And again, not fully advocating for a nerf there. I just think maybe potential buffs to those other places where like getting those bags of gems is actually a lot more reasonable. I understand then you'd be competing with, I guess, I don't even know if bots would be a problem because I guess there's probably tons of bots mining stars as well. So I don't even know if that's an issue, but I do feel like that's one of the aspects of star mining that just makes it a little bit too OP.
Yeah, it's kind of like a cheat code for early crafting on an iron, but equally, like, if you're brave enough to turn on public chat at a shooting star,
Oh god, no,
uh,
never.
like a lot of the people, well, yeah, a lot of people there are mains though, right? And they don't really like care about the GP,
Yeah,
etc. I definitely think there's been like a mentality shift, like even before I like joined, just from when I was a player, like way back in the day, that I feel like maxing isn't seen as like this like crazy flex anymore, or 99s aren't really a flex. They're kind of seen as like a goal that like everybody should kind of realistically achieve.
yeah,
So I think even if you get like no gems from like shooting stars, people would be doing it because mining is like one of the most disliked 99s, etc. Right, to just like go and get.
yep.
I think that mentality shift is interesting. Like, I don't know whether it's just like the culture, whether it's the max cape being so strong for PVM, etc. But
It's probably just also the duration of the game. I mean, the game's been out for so long. How many max players are there now? Like 30,000 or something, at least.
at least six is definitely, yeah. I don't know the exact number, but there's a couple.
I was like, at least six, like just six. Yeah, at least six max players out there.
I'm not wrong.
You're
The
not. You're
wiki
not. You're
says
just very accurate. You're just trying to make sure there's no lies in this cast. You know, nothing that can bite you in the end. You
the
know,
wiki
clipped out of
reckons it's
context.
about 45,000.
There's how many? Sorry, what did you say?
45,000 according to
Oh
the
wow,
wiki as of the 1st of
wow.
May.
Okay, yeah. So I think that's probably the biggest difference. Is in the early days, not everybody. First of all, there when there was a max cape originally. I think that was early, maybe 2015 or something. When that released, there wasn't even any perks to it. There wasn't perks to skill capes, as I remember.
Skill
And
cape
then
perks were a mistake.
yeah, that you're just. I didn't even try to ask you for that hot take. You're just sending it at that point. Yeah, I feel
No,
like I feel
it's one of those.
similarly in
It's
some
out of the
ways.
box now, though, right? It's just one of those where it's like every time you see like suggestions for the skill cape should be better, etc. And it's like that's kind of what like drives people to want 99s, and then drives people
Yeah,
to wanting the faster XP, and kind of like morphs how people approach skilling in general. I think a little bit, but
yeah.
yeah.
You know what? I promise we'll get to the topics that we have prepared, but I need to touch on this now as well, which is like just skill capes in general. One of the things that actually irritates me the most is when the skill cape finally makes you able to train the skill in a more cozy way. Like the rune crafting cape, the fact that you don't like your bags never degrade anymore. Like that is a huge thing that would have been way better at like 85, you know, or 90 when you're actually training the skill still. And then it's like, oh, you hit
Yeah.
99 and most people are not training post 99 RC. I'm aware that I do that and some other people, but like vast majority of people are like, I'm done. I'm never touching this shit again. And that's when the skill actually becomes a lot more chill and bearable. The same thing with smithing, where like the smithing cape acts as goldsmithing gauntlets. So you can just wear your ice gloves and do gold, and your coal bag holds more now. So like the whole sort of flow of blast furnace just becomes this nice chill thing, but nobody ever experiences it because nobody wants to train post 99 smithing as well. So I think those
Do you
are
not still think that,
concerning.
like, even without that though, that for how insane the output is, that like having to just click on a pair of gloves at blast furnace is still really chill for like the
I
XP
mean,
that it offers?
I mean it, but here's the issue. It's like it would be one thing if you could do that for half the skill. Like if at 92 finally you have some sort of perk that allows you to combine the two gloves or something. But it's like it's just the fact that most people never get to experience the joy of never having to do a glove switch again. Like just you just never do because you hit 99 and then it's over. And most people are just why would I keep training this?
Yeah, I get you. I think I had this chat with like Rice and Arcane quite a bit about obviously a lot of stuff that gets suggested as qual um could be done as qual, or sometimes people will come in with like a batch of like here's 5 qual suggestions for runecraft that amount to like a 30% increase in XP per hour, etc. Um, I think the biggest struggle is that reward space in old school gets harder and harder by the year. Um,
Mm,
and a lot of this stuff that is qual could probably be better done as reward space. I just don't think we have like a great, I guess, a great set of like rules of thumb for how to tackle like skilling reward space in particular. Like PVM and that kind of progression has like a kind of an almost just obviously evident like progression ladder, right? In terms of going for a piece of gear to go for to better kill like another boss that drops a better piece of gear, etc., and to build your way up and then eventually sideways along the ladder. For skilling, it's kind of like harder to do that, and I think a lot of activities obviously have kind of self-contained rewards, right? Like the better like jerry can for volcanic mine. There I go mentioning VM again. Or even like the top floor or the super hopper at like Motherlode Mine, etc. Right?
Yeah.
And like all of the rewards are kind of like self-contained within a method, and it's quite difficult, I think, to figure out the best way to make progression really work like holistically. And again, I'm not a designer, right? I just like I chat about this kind of stuff with devs all the time because it interests me, and I kind of like read everything, right? So I sit there and I guess advocate for XYZ group of players or like opinions, etc. Sometimes just to play devil's advocate and be annoying, or sometimes just because it's like a useful exercise, right? To understand how like everybody who reads something might react vaguely, so that you have like responses prepared or contingencies planned and all that jazz.
Yeah.
I think that's the difficult thing, right? Is there a point in smithing where, for example, letting you combine those two gloves would be super valuable? And it's like probably would be kind of cool. Obviously, the smith gloves don't do that, do they? No, that's just the action speed up.
Yeah. And acts as the little. Is it an
Yeah.
XP boost as well, or is the smithing outfit just be the one tick shaved off of anvil smithing? I know it has an effect in Jagex Foundry
It's
too.
the anvil time save. Yeah, I'm getting confused.
Which is a huge
But,
XP increase, to be fair. It's more than 2.5 if you're doing anvil smithing, so that is nice.
yeah, but it's more like obviously Giants Foundry has like rewards that feed into like core smithing, and that feels kind of good. It's just figuring out the best way to like kind of do that everywhere and what you'd revisit. Like when is a good time in smithing to actually introduce that? How do you do it without it feeling like a chore? Or I mean, other problems, right? Like the fish barrel feels borderline mandatory for like casual fishing, for example. That has like a pretty high degree of variance because it's 1 in 400 from Temporos. Obviously, down the line, you can get north of 100 permits an hour doing like firefighter stuff. But how do you roll them out if like you're adding these upgrades that feel borderline mandatory, but you don't want people to be going like 6x rate, etc.? You can do pity drops and all that jazz, but there's just like a lot that goes into thinking about this is like a core suggestion, but it could be reward space. We struggle for reward space. Where do we roll that out? And then how do we kind of apply that thinking consistently across like a bunch of different stuff? Is something that I think would be cool to figure out. If skilling just had more kind of built-in progression beyond just unlocking new methods. Because I think for a lot of people, it's a fault of a lot of skills that kind of the best method for the skill kind of unlocks quite early. Like, like teaks at 35 woodcutting, iron ore and granite at like low levels, etc. To a lot of people, that's like a bad, like gold at 40 smithing. To a lot of people, that's like a bad thing, right? And it's like, are there ways that you could still add some feeling of progression to these things so that you feel like you're doing something different or getting like a bit more as you go up, etc.?
Totally. I think, just to mention, I mean, you mentioned the fish barrel. First off, the same thing is applied to like Vorkath head. You get it at 50 KC because it's an untradeable. It's an easy thing to just say, here, we're going to give you it at 50 regardless. You can get it earlier. That's cool. I feel like the same thing should be applied to the fishing barrel and the tackle box. The tackle box is very rarely used anyway, but like the fishing barrel, first of all, it's an untradeable, so it doesn't affect the economy at all. And I feel like that and like the abyssal needle, I've seen somebody go 7 times the rate of the abyssal needle, and I'm like, dude, this should have been a guaranteed. I think it's 1 in 350 or 1 in 300. I can't remember the exact number, but like those things I feel like are very, very essential nowadays. Like obviously it probably wasn't when you were originally designing it. You're not really knowing how they're going to fit in the game, but the abyssal needle is an absolute like essential thing, and now you can actually use it before 85. The fishing barrel is incredible, and for those that go 5 times the rate, it's like, really, you're going to do 2,000 Temporos pulls just to get this upgrade? Like you've already like fished halfway to 99 basically at this point if you've done some other fishing as well. But like, and then the other one that I was thinking, this is just selfishly because I am over 2x rate, is Hespori, the bottomless bucket. Jesus Christ. Like the fact that I'm already 99 farming and I never got the fucking bucket, that like like is just a huge quality of life. It literally doubles my compost. It's just one item. I never have to go to like my tool leprechaun a billion times and go gather more compost. Like that thing should have been, first of all, I think the 1 in 35 is actually a bit extreme. It should be like 1 in 20 or something, and then just guaranteed at 20, so you don't have to spend over a month doing these things daily with no potential speed up. Sorry, I'm on one now because I'm like 74 KC now at Hespori, still no bucket. I'm losing it over here, but I've seen way worse too. That's the scary thing. I saw somebody go like 390 without it on Reddit. It's terrible. It's over a year, no speeding up. Finally got his bucket, like 50 mil farming.
Yeah, that's the struggle, right? And I mean, obviously, in some cases, like we may, yeah, like the lantern, for example, from Guardians of the Rift can be purchased with pearls, but not the needle.
Yeah.
I just think there's like stuff that we've like had a good idea. Like I think the lantern having like a pseudo pity rate because pearls have like a reasonably low variance, you can kind of expect like a pretty consistent amount of them over like an hour, 10 hours, etc. I think we definitely have like good ideas and then either don't apply it consistently or just like take a while to go back and like do that same kind of thing in other places. And some of that kind of stuff is like sweep up territory. Some of that is maybe just like we could be doing better in the feedback that we give to each other as a team to maybe consider these sorts of things. But again, like kind of like PVM is just like really easy to kind of understand. Like this guy drops a thing, and then you get the thing and you put it on. And for skilling, it's just like it doesn't feel the same, but I guess we don't know for sure how it should feel. Like if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean,
I feel like
I
I'm
think we're
just
still figuring it out.
like I'm just rambling.
No, I like this. I want to touch on one more thing, just because you're saying, how can we get a more globalized sort of, or maybe not globalized is the right word, but just more universal upgrades to skilling. We see it all across PVM. PVM is like literally you're getting gear. Like there's thousands of gear equipments or just equipment you can use in any other PVM encounter, and we just don't really see that same thing with skilling. And this is a very simple solution. It's just literally stolen from Minecraft. But I'm just thinking, like, what if you had a different pickaxe variations? They're all kind of on the same tier as dragon. Potentially you need a dragon pickaxe to upgrade it. And then you got like a fortune 3 pickaxe, or like an efficiency 3. I'm saying fortune 3, but just like a fortune pickaxe, or like an efficient pickaxe, or one that just destroys all the. I know we already kind of have that with the smoldering thing, but like those different, I think, variations could be kind of interesting. So like if you could pull out the tool that, I don't know, like if you wanted the fortune one, you're just getting more resources or something and like quicker. So you kind of have a little bit of like thought beforehand. I think obviously most people would probably just use the one that gives you the most XP, but there still would be some, I don't know, degree of choice there. And I do think like special attacks with skilling tools should definitely be looked at. I think that's one of the easiest things to implement that would make skilling feel better. Imagine PVM across the board just had no such thing as special attacks. That just you would lose so much excitement and just active kind of gameplay and just that sort of satisfaction. You just lose that just overnight. And I think skilling never really saw that. We got a dragon pickaxe that boosts your level by 3, and it doesn't even do anything post 99. So it's like, what is this special attack? Why can't it be like the swinging dragon claw thing that just like gathers up a bunch of ore, but it like takes an amount to charge that can't be, abused with alt transfers, or like the alt spec transferring. I mean, just some sort of charge system where like the more you do it, the more it charges up, and then you unleash it on something. I think that would be something that skilling's never really seen that can be applied to any of the gathering skills. But again, just tossing out ideas. I know we're not necessarily in an ideation session right now, but I'm choosing to anyway.
Thank God. If I can't make a villager breeder and trading hall, I'm not interested, I'm afraid. You mentioned Minecraft, and like every time I boot up that game, I just ruin it for all of my friends. Where it's like, we found diamond, guys, and it's like I've bought full enchanted armor. I've got 400 villagers neatly arranged by job.
Oh my God.
I think
glorious.
Yeah. I think the struggle with like topics like this as well, and I guess we'll move on soon because
for sure,
kind of jumping the shark a bit, I suppose. But like also it's kind of difficult because I think one of our pillars is like still to respect the time that people have put in, right? Like it feels bad if suddenly there's like a 500k XP an hour mining method, right? Like you feel like a mug for having done it before. And I'm not saying that we should never, supersede, for example, like 3T 4G rates, but it's just that if we do, it should probably be more involved and more active.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's when you come to talking about like the kind of like broad reward space that is like skilling, progression gear, etc. It's like, how do you do it in such a way that you don't just like make stuff faster for the sake of it? Also, I think there's like kind of interesting ways of doing it. Like, for example, like the mining gloves, I think are kind of a cool way of doing stuff, I suppose, where you kind of make a method that isn't really a core training method for gaining XP in the skill, like more appealing. So what kind of rewards can you add that kind of spread people around like the stuff that the skill has to offer, and maybe make like a bit more of an interconnected web of like bouncing between activities and having more stuff feeling good as you progress? Would be kind of swanky. And then yeah, I think skilling specs could be kind of cool. Like, I don't know, like I think it would be weird to try and separate them from stuff like spec transferring and the likes, but maybe that would be kind of interesting for people. I don't know.
Yeah,
Definitely be an experiment. See, like
you guys have already separated the Soul Reaper acts from being able to be spec transfer. It's just a separate charge. So even if it was simply gather this many resources and then it fully charges up like 10 resources and then it charges up again. So it's something as simple as that. I know there would probably be more complexity to it just because you could abuse that potentially, but I don't know. I just think there are ways about it, and to try to capture what PVM has done well, because PVM is just thriving. I mean, we are totally in the platinum age of PVM, and we're about to get Raids 4, Blood Moon Rises. You guys have figured it out. Like, PVM is just such a pleasure, and skilling is just not there yet. And I think we're playing just a point and click game where things can just be directly applied one to the other. Not, obviously, I don't want skilling to just be killing shit, but you can apply those same sorts of like RNG elements of getting something rare. I love that you guys are applying loot sacks to a lot of these mini games like Hunter Rumors and stuff, and now you're adding it to courier tasks. I think that's brilliant personally. Probably doesn't, for those like super purist old school players, they probably see that as like Toontownscape or whatever, but like I'm a huge fan of it. It feels good to get a piece of loot that you don't know what's in there yet. Like, that's the sort of PVM thing that you guys are applying to skilling. And the same thing could go with special attacks. The same thing could go with getting rid of stickiness. I mean, PVM, again, like, you're not glued to a boss when you swing it. You're free moving. It's like this beautiful synergy that you kind of feel with PVM, just this sort of freedom of movement, freedom of attacking. There's not these awkward delays a lot of the time. And skilling is just fraught with that. It's everywhere. And it's like, apply what you've learned from the PVM and bring it to skilling. You don't need to do it to everything, but like just apply it to a few places and see how people feel about it, because I really do think they'd be a huge fan of it. So
yeah, it's just tough. I think it might make for like an interesting sweep up topic sometime.
yes.
As we did with like obviously like elemental weaknesses and split range weaknesses, which I think we're like underutilizing a bit, but equally I think that's kind of baby steps. Yeah, I mean, they came off the back of a sweep up, and I think elemental weaknesses in particular have been like just really solid.
Yeah.
It'd be cool to tackle something like more wide reaching, maybe in 27 or 28. I'm not going to commit to that because I'll show this to Arcane and he'll be like, no.
Well, we've already clipped it, so you're already gonna follow up on this.
Not because he wouldn't want to, but because it would be a nightmare, but still.
All right, let's move on to some of the real juicy topics that we do have today regarding Raids 4. So I want to ask a sort of broad question, which is, how challenging have the rewards been to design for Raids 4? And maybe go into some of the hurdles and just other sort of challenges that the team has had to overcome in designing these rewards. I mean, this is probably, you've said the word emotional a couple times. This is like an emotional space because you got players that have been aching for this new raid, and to try to appeal and try to capture this feeling that you want to give to players, but it's all about the reward, really. It feels like you have this thing, like you got to have like a mega rare, like that feels like almost like it's essential to it, and then they got to be powerful but not too powerful. You don't want to be trampling other things. You've been kind of overseeing Raids 4, so you really are in the thick of it. How has that process been for the developers?
Hard. I mean, that's why we put out that like, well, that's why I was really keen on putting out that kind of rewards primer, I guess, right? Like explaining like the challenge space, the kind of solutions that we were sort of thinking of, and just sort of like letting people know, yo, it's tough. Um, just to kind of, like, I guess, get them a little bit on side ahead of whenever the first like proper rewards proposal happens, which should be in June. I don't know when this will go. Um, no, it's tough. I think it's tough for so many reasons, right? And obviously they're kind of outlined in that blog. But it's been 5 years since TOA. I think for like endgame, like the sweaty endgame players, TOA wasn't really for them, which is fine. I don't think everything needs to be for everyone. And like Tob, in my opinion, mechanically, in terms of like actual like minute to minute of like start to end of raid, is as close to perfect as exists in old school. Um, so for some of them, it's been like 10 years since their last raid, right? At this point, like Tob was 2016. And there's a lot riding on how Raids 4 goes down. And obviously, the kind of the elephant in the room with almost everything that we do in old school right now is content is only as good as it is worthwhile, and then like what you get out of it is the reason to do the content in the first place, irrespective of how fun it is. If the rewards suck, no one's going to do it. If it's not good like profit, no one's going to do it. So it's kind of tough because the raid itself is so sick. Like what we're making is really fucking cool. Um, and then you have this challenge of designing rewards for it, where there's a bunch of disagreement about what should the kind of like broad categories of what you get from it look like, right? Like even like I personally believe that, and I think most players would agree, mega like a chase item or like a mega rare kind of does feel like a necessity. Um, then you have people like No Monkey who I think in a logically sound sense argue that maybe having a mega rare is just a bad idea, and that it would be better to have like a disparate set of stuff which kind of ties into the thematic of it being Githix's archive, right?
Hmm.
But then it's like I think that is probably more sound for future proofing the game and like better design space, but people want a mega rare, right? And then you get into this whole philosophical discussion of at what point can we step on the toes of an existing mega rare, because we can't just like keep side grading forever. Like at what point is it fine, for example, for something to be stronger than the T-bow for ranged? It's been over a decade since the T-bow came out. Is it time? Do we start like at some point? I feel like we'll probably have to say like there is like a tier beyond this existing set of mega rares. But yeah, it's just tough because I don't think there's a right answer, right? I don't think there's any silver bullet like set of rewards or anything that you'll say where like everyone's going to be like that seems good, right? And that's the challenging part, is like trying to circumnavigate everything and wind up in a place that's kind of like good enough. We've been talking about rewards behind closed doors with like some NDA'd players, etc., for well over half a year at this point. We had like an initial proposal that was met with kind of like mixed reviews. Then we came back with another one that was kind of mixed reviews, and we came up with a bunch of kind of like gimmicky items, I think, that we thought might spice things up a bit. Not as like a proposal itself, but like, are any of these cool and would you like to see them included, right? And when I say gimmicky, I mean in the same vein as like the Soul Reaper axe, right? Like it's not crazy, it's not super unwieldy, but it's like a bit spicy, you know, it does something a bit different.
Yeah.
Some of those were interesting. Then we wound up at the proposal that we're probably like kind of at right now, shared it with one group of people, and they, I think overall it went down like quite well. They liked some parts, they didn't like others. And then we share it with like a different NDA group, and they like the parts that the other group didn't like, but not like the parts that the other group liked. And you kind of wind up in this place of like the only thing left is to just put it, like make it just run the gauntlet of public opinion and see what comes
Yeah.
out. Because it's so, unless you're like, I think talking with like a huge group of people, if we're dealing with the numbers of like between like 5 and 10 people like offering feedback on something, right? I just, everyone has different thoughts on so much about what like Raids Rewards should look like, that the the variance in responses and the disparity is just so astronomical that it becomes like really hard to like pin down what might make people happy. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, it's tough. I've chatted for a long time there, but it is hard, and I don't envy the jobs of the designers. I don't envy myself when this first reward proposal goes out in front of people. But I hope we can get it right. It's going to be a sick raid. We've got some sick ideas. Like some really, that's like one of the rewards in particular. I just think is so cool. I hope people like it.
I'm excited. Do you have any like sort of ETA for that blog post? Like, is it June?
June.
Okay. Sometime in June, early or late, do you think?
Hopefully. In effect, it's in a position now where it's like the proposal's been like done, and we've kind of like decided we're just gonna put it in front of people and see what happens. Not in like a we don't care anymore way, just in a like we don't think there's anything else useful we can do feedback wise.
Yeah.
But we're waiting on some last bits of concept art, just because I think for Razor Awards, like I can write words on a blog post for the rest of my life. I probably write too many words on too many blog posts.
Nah, they're good. They're good. You do a great job.
I just think being able to like visualize something makes it feel a bit more like real.
Yes.
And maybe either helps people get like bought in, or like for some people it might look good on paper and then they see like a piece of concept art and I'm not really feeling like the fantasy of this particular item and such, which I think is completely valid. Like something could be like really cool numerically and you're like, I don't like the vibe, and it's like, that's fine. I think that's valid. Mm-hmm. So we're kind of waiting on that for now. I'm conscious that obviously the later it comes in, the less time we have to nail everything before the end of the year. But I think we'll get there. I'm confident that we'll get somewhere good.
The fact that you basically already have it locked and loaded, just kind of waiting to reveal it, gives me one. It kind of just allows.
Locked.
Sorry.
Don't say locked. It's super malleable. Like I don't.
It's
anything can change. We can pull anything on a whim.
Yeah. Can I just say though, because
so final.
The fact that you guys have been doing this for, having this NDA group for the last 6 months, basically talking about this. I mean, there was an idea that just came out. Well, I don't know when it actually came out, but on Behemoth yesterday, they were talking about a 2-handed stab weapon, which kind of looked like Dark Souls vibe. And it had, as far as I'm aware, it could have been a little bit different than this. I'm maybe misremembering, but what it seemed like is its special attack had to be clicked on when somebody else is attacking you. So it's almost like a parry thing, but it uses your special attack for it, and then basically negates all damage incoming to you and reflects it back to the enemy. And that, in my view, is fucking genius. It's just like such a cool design choice that takes skill. It's going to be heavily used in situations where you're doing like melee attacks to somebody and they're doing melee attacks back, because I think it really only should be used against incoming melee attacks rather than just like mage attacks and stuff. But like,
you know what I'm hearing?
Yeah, go for it.
The people yearn for vengeance and thralls were a mistake. People that like reacting to like incoming damage and parrying is so enjoyable. I think it would be a good film.
It is. Listen, I mean, you guys.
That's why Soul feels so sick, right? That like melee, that kind of like Soul's like melee sequence where he delays it by a tick as you get further into the fight. Is just stuff like that. I think is like realistically the best way to evolve. Ooh, a spooky word, like combat and old school. Like adding just interesting ways of interacting with stuff that isn't like an ability bar, etc. Because that's not what old school's about. But I feels good mechanics like that. I'm kind of in favor of.
Yeah, that weapon idea got me so on board. For so long, I had been sort of in the camp of just make the next melee or make the next mega rare a fast weapon. So 3-tick or 2-tick melee weapon. Somehow you balance that with gear. There's obviously ways around that to not make it so your gear is getting like exponential sort of damage boost, because right now you can like have no weapon on your guy and still be punching like 45s and stuff, which is out of control with how much strength bonus you can get. So obviously a faster attacking weapon gets a huge boost from all that, so you'd have to adjust for that. But I always thought it would be cool to, even if something did on paper outclass a scythe as a 2-tick weapon from Raids 4, it still wouldn't in practicality. I mean, most players would not be able to capture that amount of DPS because of just how much tick loss they'd experience. And I think that is a sort of route you can go down where you are kind of stepping on the toes of the scythe, but one, it could be a different style. It could be crush, so it's not quite stepping on it. And then also, it is better than a scythe on paper, but you're not actually going to squeeze that in because in a lot of situations, you want that big swing, and then you can kind of like, switch gear or whatever, run to the next little enemy or whatever. And that's just not going to be the case with something so fast, because every single tick that passes is massive DPS loss. So, but I don't know. Now I'm thinking, holy shit, a two-handed stabby boy that's like this huge Dark Souls. You're using both hands to lunge it into people, and also have just a global sort of parry mechanic that can be used anywhere where you're fighting something that's using melee against you. Sounds incredibly exhilarating and fun. And like you said, with Vengeance, first off, I actually do think the Lunar Spellbook could get a revamp, just like you guys have revamped the Archaea Spellbook. You could just come out with like a Vengeance 2.0 sort of scroll from something that, like, you read the scroll similar to the dossier you get from Yama, and make it so the Vengeance against PVM enemies just does like 50% more damage or something, or maybe if they're like a 2x2, it does like an extra splat on them. Like, Vengeance is cool, and I do feel like it is underutilized. And you guys, I feel like the dev team is specifically like making Vengeance not work against certain things. Like Next, for example, I don't even think Vengeance works there. It's like, why are we nerfing this? This is like a cool thing to have. We shouldn't nerf it everywhere.
Yeah, I love Venge.
It's nice.
Obviously the problem with making like upgraded Venge is it gets insane in PvP, and then you have to dive into do we have another thing that works differently between PVM and PvP?
Yeah.
And that's a whole barrel, like,
Yeah.
that makes it tough.
I do think,
I also think like it's kind of,
go for it.
when it comes to mega rare philosophy, the whole idea of like, should they be like difficult to use or like require some like kind of high degree of interactivity is like a difficult one, right? Because I think for a lot of people that are like, just it's a stat stick that hits like an absolute train is like kind of what makes them stand out a little bit. And having like a mega rare where it like could feel like shit if you just like mess up the mechanic is maybe like tough for a lot of people. Like, there's definitely like an upper ceiling to how much interactivity feels good when you're at like the top end of PVM. I think like when we were doing some of the initial rounds of testing for like Ruinous Powers, for example, and we threw Rebuke into the mix, I think it was the like Reflection, Prayer, etc. It kind of got into territory where a lot of like really good players were like, it's too much, it's too annoying. I think it's just a difficult line to walk, right, and understand how to make stuff like that in a way that doesn't like feel like it's too much for old school when you're like already doing quite a bit if you're like really optimizing content at the top.
I think that's part of what I liked about the weapon, though, is it wasn't just you can do it all the time. It did have a special attack cooldown. So I believe what it was like a 60% attack, like a 60% special attack. If you fail it, it takes the whole 60%. But if you succeed with the parry, you also regen another 20. So it was really only like a 40%. And in most situations, you'd probably just pull out your Burning Claws anyway. But in those certain circumstances, I don't know, where something's just about to punish you or something, and this could be in the future, you could add mechanics that actually would complement this weapon a lot more. It's like, have a boss that's like so similar to Soul, where Soul is loading up with this massive attack, is going to deal something huge to you. I know Sire does that, but I think it's more like a magic based type of attack where it's like a guaranteed 60 or something on you. Like, it's those elements of a fight where if it was a sort of melee attack coming and it was choreographed and you're prepared for it, this mega rare to negate all the incoming damage and reflect it back in that situation is just super cool. And you do have to pull it off, tick perfect, and I don't know. It wouldn't be used everywhere because it just simply couldn't, and other spec weapons would be better in most situations unless there was, again, like a choreographed element of a fight where you do want this mega rare to just deal huge amounts of damage back. So
yeah,
a little bit
I
different.
think stuff like that's neat. It's just finding the right moments for it as well, right? And then like there's loads of
Mhm.
stuff that you feel like it should work on that it like technically can't. Like I don't think you could make something like that work on like soap ball or like greens at Verzik, but
Yeah.
you'd probably want them to. Do you know what I mean? That
Yeah, it's
feels like the kind of thing where it like should happen, but I just don't think you could do it. Like maybe we could, but it would feel a bit janky.
and it wouldn't feel
Um,
right as a melee weapon reflecting a projectile coming at you. It's like,
yeah, well, I don't know. Geralt manages it, deflecting bolts and stuff
hmm,
for the Witcher enjoyers watching. But
well, shit, yeah. I mean, that could still be cool. I mean, to plan or to sort of get that tick perfect. I feel like projectiles in this game are always a little wonky when you're far away from something because it's like, when is the hit splat actually going to splat me? It feels like sometimes it's late and sometimes it's like early. So that would be interesting. Also, could be something for shields in the future if you ever wanted to implement shields. Like the incoming projectile for shields to reflect that back makes a lot more sense than like a stabby boy somehow reflecting it.
we did see after the rewards primer a lot of people asking for shields. Um, Shields are cool. We want to make an interesting one. I think the struggle is that to make a shield cool, you kind of have to make an offensive shield, which might feel a bit weird. But loads of people like the idea of like Tonky Shield, but just defense doesn't matter that much in old school. It's like when people are like Repoll the Divine, and it's like, where would you use it? It's insane, but
At a
like
bank.
nowhere warrants it.
Yeah.
To flex. Like, um, I think that's the struggle. But yeah, I think the idea of like deflecting stuff for retaliating damage is kind of swanky, just tough to get into a spot where it like feels really right.
Yeah. Um, I want to hear your thoughts on this as well. So, in regards to a new like armor set, what we have
Oh
seen
boy.
time and time again is it feels like the new best in slot armor also has like best in slot defensive uh, stats to it as well. Like it just feels like we've always gone down that route of something that feels and to be fair, I think that actually was the healthy route and still is the healthy route to kind of just have a this is the best armor. Like Torva is so cool. Obviously, we have Oathplate now, which kind of rivals it. It's just like right up there. But they both have insane defensive stats too, which can feel good because you don't want to kind of be picking and choosing. Like I have the best in slot armor, but I kind of want the defense. I'm going to go with this. It's just nice having it all in one package. And the same thing we see with Masori. You guys did not decide to go down the route of like best in slot range strength, but we're gonna just give you like negative defensive or stats to make it like sort of balance out. Like that just wouldn't feel good to a player. And so I'm prefacing this, and I want to ask: do you think? And I just overall thoughts, I guess, would a melee armor that outclasses Torva in strength bonus but has zero defensive stats or very very minimal, sort of like an assassin's armor, like that just is almost just like you'll just get destroyed because you have no defensive capability, but it does top Torva. Do you think that that would be a healthy addition to the game, or do you think it would trample on Torva? Do you think nobody would ever use Torva again? Or do you think this armor would just be seen as a nuisance to wear because now you're like a naked boy, but you have insane strength? I just wonder, is that ever brought up in these discussions of these huge drawbacks with insane power?
You're asking a lot of design questions to the monkey with a keyboard.
Yep.
But
Well, you kind of overseen the discussion, so I just wonder what are people talking about in those? Like, do you think that ever did get brought up? Those kinds of suggestions? Is it good?
we talk about stuff like this kind of often, I suppose. Like we were having similar chats with like the Runer's powers again to bring them back up, my beloved. May they rest in peace on the shelf. Because they had a whole thing going on, right, where you'd gain like a bunch of offense but like lose defense, etc. Which I think broadly is probably good game design principles. But I think one of the things that is most stark to me when I like chat with designers is that I think good game design and good old school design are not one and the same. I don't think in general players are a big fan of you get this but also this. I think it's just like a really tough balance to get right, because I feel like at the top, I sense that like really good players would probably quite enjoy something like that. I guess the problem becomes how much more strength bonus does it need to be over Torva for it to be worth having no defense, right? And then do you just kind of get into like silly territory in terms of like how quickly content falls over in like organized groups, etc. Um, I don't know. I just think it's tough to get right. And like there was a period of time where we felt as though more low life stuff, similar to like Darox, but not only limited to Darox, would be kind of interesting, and didn't really feel as though we could stick the landing on it. I just
Yeah,
think
that
it's
was a
tough
tough one.
to, yeah, I think it's tough to get it into like the exactly perfect spot because, I mean, Ink is kind of that as well, right? It's not like better than Torva or anything like that, but for Crush, it's still like often Biss, not always, because Torva strength bonus, right?
Yeah.
But it feels bad to wear because the defense is so low. If you'd wanted to make a pure, you would have made a pure.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just difficult, like because you never know how it's going to go down with people, and
And
especially when it's
then
so singular, it's difficult for people to have like a reference point. Like no one's, you don't know how it feels to do like a shitload of damage but have no defense because you can't simulate that unless you like actually play it. And it might look cool on paper, and then it comes into the game, you're like, oh, this sucks actually.
yeah, that's sort of like because I'm hesitant to say that would be a good addition to the game to have an assassin's armor. Let's just say has 2 additional strength over each piece, so like a total of 6 additional melee strength to wear this, with just very very little defense, if any. And I'm thinking to myself, like, yeah, in a lot of situations, players would gravitate toward this, but I think there would be almost a kind of nasty feeling of feeling like, okay, I want to just feel ultimately powerful. Like I want to be able to use the best in slot stuff like Torva and also feel very, very strong and like defensively capable. And I feel like that drawback ultimately just has a kind of nasty feeling to it. And I wonder how other players feel about that. Because I think, again, you're talking about game design versus old school. And I do feel like old school has some extra element of like sort of the simplicity of like, this is just Biss, this is Biss in like basically every way. Wear this because you grinded, hundreds of hours for it, and you just want to feel like this is the good stuff, and you don't want to feel like you're always missing out. Because if this armor were to come into the game and then you're using Torva, there's going to be this feeling in the back of your head like, I could be using the assassin's armor, but I'm choosing not to because I just want to play it a little bit safer. I just don't want to be a fucking ragdoll. And I think that can be also a little bit of a problem psychologically for players. I wonder how much of like the psychological factors are being implemented in these discussions, like just the
I also
feeling of
think
weapons. Yeah.
defense doesn't matter like a lot in old school. I don't think anything in the game lasts so long that the best defense or the best way to mitigate damage is to kill something so that it can't do any more damage.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely think like going from like Torva to nothing, a lot of the content that's balanced around you having like some defense, you'll definitely just start to like almost absolutely like rail you.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Oh yeah.
do you know, like if you have no defense, you're just gonna be getting slapped like 30s nonstop on like any kind of worthwhile scale. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think it's
Yeah.
like
That
really tough.
it's almost it almost does make sense though, because like think about Tob, Raids 2 or Tob, like that they came out with Just Assure, which was not meant to be a best in slot or anything. They just came out with it. It's an armor set, comes from the next raid. At the time, it was kind of seen as cool because it's the sort of defensive armor. I feel like the same thing could potentially come from a raid of like an assassin's armor. This is best in slot strength. It comes from a raid, so it makes sense that this would come from this content. But at the same time, not everyone's going to use it. And in a lot of places, you're just going to choose not to. But if you're doing like a melee slayer task, you'll definitely want this because you're just going to be doing more damage. Like, again, it's something I just wanted to bring up. But it does sound like it's more of a, I don't know, almost like drawbacks are not seen as a good thing for old school. I feel like I generally feel with armor. So,
Yeah, I think occasionally it's like fine, right? But
yeah.
it's just difficult to get it right, I suppose, where like a lot of gear is kind of like simplistic. I think obviously trading some defense for offense does generally feel good, but it's getting the right balance, and then can you do that in a way that makes it actually feel worthwhile is just really tough to do.
Yeah.
And I think while like a lot of games, like Path of Exile, for example, is a huge fan of you gain this but lose this for some source of power, and I just don't think old school is set up in such a way that like works a lot of the time. Like you kind of do need a bit of everything.
That's true.
Which isn't to its detriment either. Like it's one of the game's strengths, right?
Yeah.
Justy's a weird one as well. I feel like I kind of wish it were better, but I think it's still a little bit slept on.
It's not slept on. It's not. It's terrible. It's
look
like,
at what like Reynold does with it in the Colosseum, though, dude. Like,
I mean, the issue is like, okay, it's not completely out of place, but like the fact that like the Bulwark got this interesting spec that runs off of your like defensive stats as the special attack, like that's how much it's gonna hit. Like Torva is better than it, and it's like, why is Torva
yeah,
like better than the defensive, like super defensive armor? So like I'm just thinking,
it's the nature of creep. Yeah,
yeah,
but
just I
it's
wouldn't
also
even say
like
just buff it a little bit, just crank up the stats like 10% in the defensive category, or give it like some flat armor or something.
I spoke with Arcane about the flat armor thing a while ago. He gave
Yeah.
some like kind of like interesting thoughts, but I can't be bothered to scroll up through our DMs and
What was the
find them
general
again. I'll
sentiment?
have to find them at some point. Oh boy, I'm gonna find it.
Okay.
Like, it shouldn't take me long.
While you're finding it, I'll just share a couple of my thoughts. I do think flat armor is a cool route to go down. We had this conversation on one of the panels I was running with some players. Is I think visually there needs to be some visual elements of flat armor. So, and especially when enemies have flat armor. So, if an enemy has a flat armor, I do think there should just be a visual indicator saying like the hit spot you did, and then a secondary hit spot that says like minus or plus that amount. So you feel like it's like it just becomes visibly clear immediately that okay, this monster has flat armor, because there's actually a pretty decent variety of monsters that do have some version of flat armor, either plus or minus, and you have to look at the wiki. I just think an added visual to that could be really cool, and then it could actually open up the window for more of that in the future, because I just think it's important to sort of know what your max hit is and what that guy's sort of max hit is. So like if we started implementing more flat armor with players as well, it'd be kind of cool to see an enemy hit you and then see, okay, it also got deflected this number, and it just has that visual. I feel like I'm struggling to exactly say why that's important, but in the discussion we had, it was very clear at that moment, like this would be a positive to the game, because I think we are playing a game where max hits means so much, and to have enemies now start having flat armor and stuff, and then you having flat armor, it can kind of gray that area a bit. And I think a lot of players love the precision of this is my max hit in all situations, and if not, there's going to be a visual indicating that it's not.
Yeah, I think there is like an appetite for us to do more with hit markers in general, even for like correctly playing against an attack, right? Is a really common one that we want to do, just haven't gotten around to, or haven't technically found a way to make it work nicely. I think it would be cool with flat armor. I can't find our chat in general about the Justy stuff, but we did have one. I think there was some like concern that just even like the teeniest amount of numbers on it kind of make it like a must-have anywhere where chip damage is like the trip limiter, I suppose. So somewhere like Araxor, or like DKs, etc., just become nigh on unlimited. Like, and then you kind of turn into this thing ignores flat armor because you have like exceptions in certain places. I just think it's like another one that's like really tough to get right. Maybe it could be better at what it does. I think realistically, the same approach to improving it should probably be kind of what we did to the Scythe when it was struggling, where just like content where defense matters would make Justy infinitely more interesting and the Dins infinitely more interesting and open up more space to do cool stuff. Like P-Moons is kind of that, right? But it's not aimed at such a player base that you need Justy to do Perilous Moons.
Yeah. Can I
but
say
it
something?
kind of just goes against everything else like that the game has in it at the moment, right? And like defense really mattering. is
Yeah.
either really cool or really bad, depending on who you ask.
I need to share this because we've always thought of like, hey, how can we implement some sort of tank role or like just roles in general in raids, like having somebody be the tank or somebody be the major or whatever. And I just thought, think of like the Eclipse Moon. You go in there and you're just walking behind this little fucking little chocolate whopper basically around the room. Imagine in a raid or some group content the same thing applies, but you're following instead of a moving NPC object thing that moves in a choreographed little way. You have to follow your tank role guy. So he is equipping the bulwark, and now you're walking a straight line and then walking another straight line, and all the other raid members have to follow perfectly behind him to not get like blasted by this. Like that would be a cool way to implement. First of all, to make defense matter in a way, and then to actually allow a tank role to actually have some sort of meaning. So not everybody has to bring their Justy and their bulwark, just one guy in the party, and he's acting now as the Zuck shield for everybody else, and they all have to perfectly be choreographed behind him walking. Like that would be, hey, I mean, you've already implemented to Eclipse Moon, so if people are thinking like, where is this ever teaching you anything? Like, oh, it's teaching you in the next raid. You got to follow behind this thing perfectly. I think that could be an interesting way to implement defensive elements in a more interesting way in group content, at least.
Yeah, I think stuff like that's kind of neat. I just feel like broadly that people are kind of more into like the sort of like soft tank role that is enforced and can be like traded over at Verzik. I think like people, I get the sense that the fantasy of it is like quite appealing, but then like kind of wrestling with the reality of it, it kind of makes it like a bit weirder because then how does it work if the content like needs to be soloable as well?
Yeah.
If you can't solo it at all, that has like its own set of problems with the player base of today, right? Does it feel weird that you like effectively require Din's Bulwark to engage with the content, which is like a nightmare for Irons? Does it feel weird if you're doing that and not having a Din's Bulwark and you just pick up a thing in the instance and kind of establish yourself as the tank? Maybe that's fine.
Yeah.
It's just like it's difficult, right? To like marry it up to what makes old school feel good. I think is like a challenge for designers. Whereas like something like Verzik is kind of simple. Where it's like you're the tank, you miss a bit of DPS with like stepping under, etc. Or you should learn Pog Tank in case you get aggro MP3, etc.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think stuff like that is like more interesting and also kind of still encourages you to learn everything. Like if you get aggro, obviously it's a big DPS loss for your group if you're like sat under Verzik for however many ticks, it's like 9 ticks or whatever, or it takes her to like find a new target to like aggro onto primarily. So it's kind of its own reward to be like at least a little bit confident doing it.
Yeah.
I feel like stuff like, and there's some instances of that kind of stuff that I think we'd like toyed around with for some bits and raids for, but
yeah, no, you're totally right about the sort of fantasy versus the practicality of it. That's always something
it's just
where
old school's hard, man. It's just it's a weird game. Like it's a weird game.
It
Love
totally
it
is.
though. That's what makes it so sick, but it's hard. Like
yeah, no, I mean a lot of the time the fantasy really is about like having dedicated roles, and I'm like, if you have a dedicated role in a raid, first of all, you've just instantly lost so much interesting gameplay. I mean, the fact that like there's no gear switches now, like you're just the dedicated major, like that sounds boring as hell. Like you're just going to be the major that just never switches their gear. And like old school has an identity to have gear swaps, and you want like in most raids people are bringing like tribrid setups, and if you get rid of that, like that doesn't feel right. But again, it's like the theory of it sounds cool. Like I'm the mage role, I'm the melee role, but it doesn't quite work out. It just seems like everybody just brings all their best in slots they possibly can, and that's the extent of it. Like, oh, well, what's the max DPS you can do? And that's the game we're playing, which is fun and it makes sense. And it just makes, it literally just makes the most sense to have it be DPS scape. It just works out in most cases. As much as people would, resist that, I think in practicality, that is what ends up working out the best.
Yeah, I think there are some instances where it's handled like really well though. Like I think roles are good. I just don't think like them being super pigeonholed like the holy trinity of typical MMOs is like a great thing to do. But
Mm,
like I feel like Maiden, for example, like if you're like solo freezing or north freezing, south freezing, etc., is like kind
that's
of
true.
interesting
Yeah,
and then informs how you're gonna like approach Nilo. Um, Even
that's
just
a good
small
point.
stuff like you know calling like what phases you're gonna spec out on soak, for example, is like they're not like hard enforced roles, but there's like I have to do this specific thing, and then by and large I'm still kind of like doing the same stuff as everybody else, but it just like feels good to have like it's my moment here, I've got to do a thing, like I need to freeze these Nilos at the same, and it's not like difficult, right, to just like freeze
Hmm.
Nilos at the right tick, but it like it feels cool, and like you know if you screw it up people are gonna let you know. Like, and that like feels, it feels good for there to be stakes, and it feels good for you as a player, I think, to feel important in a group encounter in a
Yeah,
way that isn't just, you know, don't stand on the rocks and don't get hit by attacks, etc.
totally right. Yeah, that accountability is what makes rating special, I think, in a lot of ways. Okay. There's obviously a lot we can talk about in raids. I think there's gonna be so much more to talk about once the actual reward blog is out. So I
There's
wanna
not much I can talk about. Like,
I really wish I could just mind read you right now and just like understand what the rewards are coming out in the blog. I would be so excited. Like I'm envious of you just kind of knowing everything, but you just can't reveal it in a way. Like that's exciting. I don't know. I wonder if any of these ideas are just like you have to almost like hold back because it like is in the blog post or something. You just can't say it. Um, Let me switch gears. Still talking about raids, but will TFA? I think that's what most people are calling it, right? Fractured Archive TFA
or Fred,
or Fred.
because of how it came up in the like summit teaser that we did forever ago with
Okay.
the trailer. Loads of people called it Fred, which I thought was
Okay,
fun.
there we go. Well, Fred, um, will it be as soloable as Cox or Toa, or will it more like, or will it be more like TOB, where it's not really designed for solo, but it still can be achieved technically?
Um, just to be like extra cautious, I'm gonna double check what I've said in the past.
Sure.
So we said publicly, and it's still the plan that it scales between 2 and 8 players.
Mm-hmm.
The solos are still definitely like doable, and we do like test stuff on solos, but they're difficult. My gut instinct is that it will. My gut instinct, and like again, I could be wrong. We're not done like balancing stuff, right? We've not even finished all of the bosses in it, etc.
Yeah.
But if I had to like finger in the air, like quick vibe check, somewhere between like Chambers and Tob. I think the thing with Tob is that soloing Tob just feels like loads of this weird esoteric stuff.
Abuse just feels like bug abuse in a lot of ways, or just like
I
brute
don't think
forcing.
it feels like you're getting like one over on the game, and that's kind of what makes them cool and like interesting. But I think it's like a bit off-putting for like a lot of people. I don't think TFA is going to sit in like that kind of space.
Okay.
The same way as like, to be fair, when you finally like crack Ulm, it feels a little bit like you're like outplaying the game, right?
True.
And they're like, look at this idiot, like he's just turning his head around the whole time, like some salamander Ulm guy he is. Like,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, it's like really difficult to say. I think the struggle, because obviously I see a lot of comments whenever we've spoken about TFA from people being like, it should scale down to 1, like the raid should be like soloable, the same as TOA. And I completely get where those people come from. And like old school, I think better than any other MMO has really captured this idea of like, um, I guess like for Irons as well, it's like standalone, like together, right? Like you're kind of, it's really solo friendly compared to a lot of MMOs, but you exist in this like big shared world that makes all of the stuff that you do solo feel like it matters.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think the struggle for designers, and I can't speak for them, but again, just like a vibe, is if you make stuff with the intent that it is soloable, it kind of hamstrings how interesting you can make stuff for a group. Um, and I still think that like raids being group content, or at least just adding more interesting group content to the game, is a good thing. Naturally, there's all kind of like other conversations you can spin up there about like group finders or like the ease of like engaging with this kind of content. I know Tob is a particular pain point for a lot of people. Um, but yeah, it's a struggle. So soloable, difficult, probably made a bit easier by the fact that it has like probably the friendliest like practice mode of any raid that we've made. But yeah, I think that's the kind of thoughts, right? Is that like if you do to it what you do to TOA and you say you can just do everything solo and it's fine. Obviously, the one place that you suffer from that in TOA is like the obelisk attacks, right? Which can be a bit annoying unless you stand all the way off to the side, and do all of the janky like redemption-y stuff. But it's just difficult to make something work for one person and then feel good for more than one person.
Yeah.
In like an interesting way, right? And you don't get many opportunities, I think, to make like really cool group content where coordination feels like it matters. And if you're not using raids to do that, when are you doing it?
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think it's to Tob's strength, right? Is like Nilo feels cool because you kind of all have to do something. But if you want to tackle it as a solo, like you need to like study up. Like Nilo is so hard solo; it's insane. Like,
yeah.
I don't think anything's quite going to be at that level. Maybe I'm wrong again, like no numbers, but that's my finger in the air gut take. Don't hold me to it in terms of like difficulty, but that's why the whole like solo debate is kind of a tricky one.
Well, don't worry about that little last disclaimer. That's not part of the clip that everyone's just clipped. They've just clipped you saying this is what it's going to be, and then we didn't get the disclaimer at the end. So you still will be clipped out of context, unfortunately. But that's just the way of the world.
They're still writing angry comments about all of the thermonuclear tips at the start of the
they're typing out their angry comments and pausing it right before you just add that disclaimer at the end, and they're like, "Nope, this is out of control."
It's always tough with chats like this as well because it's like for like professionally, obviously, like my opinions don't really bleed into like much of my work. Like how I feel about the game, etc., is just like not relevant in my day to day. Like I don't care. It's just, you know, these players are saying this. This is the kind of player who's saying this, and why they might want X, Y, Z. And here's how I think X, Y, Z would likely affect these other group of people, etc. It's very that. It's kind of like understanding where feedback is coming from, what their motives might be, and all that jazz. So it's tough when you come on something like this, and it's like, how do you feel about something? It's like, I'll tell you how I feel about it, but I cannot stress enough to anybody listening that if I say anything that you like don't agree with when it's a personal take, it's not how I conduct myself at work. Like,
yeah. That is important for people to understand. I appreciate that you are willing to give your personal takes on things, and I think for those people that are rational and understanding, they will totally just see it as, okay, you're just talking from personal stuff. This is not you as the face of the business right now. So let me ask you.
Things where in our first chat, because I'd only been in the role for like 5 months, etc. There's obviously like a lot more tepid, and I think now I'm more comfortable with at least like I think people like get that my work and personal takes are kind of like quite removed from each other, and I think it's good to have a team with like diverse perspectives and opinions as well, even internally. But
yeah.
Let
me touch on the practice mode stuff. You mentioned that this is probably going to be the best practice mode thing we've gotten. Can we get a little bit of an inside scoop on how that's going to work? Is it just because I think you guys have shared it a little bit, but I'm still a little bit lost as to whether it's like, can you just choose the room that you want to practice and it's like the full difficulty, or like how much can you share on that?
Let me double check the blog again. I'm pretty sure I remember exactly what we said. We're actually working on it at the moment, so that's like one of the things that we're developing right now. Yeah, okay. I'm not gonna say anything untoward. Yeah, the plan is for it to be a practice mode, where you pick a boss. It should remember what supplies you have. You practice killing the boss, and then when you're done, you get the supplies back, or if you die, you get your supplies back, etc. Obviously sounds kind of trivial to develop, actually kind of difficult because it's a spooky system when it comes to like the risk of like dupes and stuff like that. So technically it's always a really interesting challenge to do like inventory snapshotting and things like that. But yeah. So, you know, unlike other bosses where it's like if you want to practice Tecton, you know, you should probably just fire up a CM, or you just hit the reload button a billion times, or if you really want to practice Nilo, you have to suffer through like Maiden and Bloat. You pick a boss, you practice it, job done. So you can really just like get your reps in even as like a solo player, and then the difficulty just becomes like, can you get stuff clean enough that you can chain everything together to get to the end?
Okay, so
but I think the plan is still, as we said in the initial blog, to not have that available on release, and have that become a thing later. I think one of the things that we felt with TOA, where obviously I think TOA is like the most approachable raid that Old School has, was a huge success. And even if you're not someone who personally like enjoys the raid a lot, the number of people who did TOA and then got themselves like on the PVM pipeline and like progressing up the PVM ladder, etc. Like you could see like the price of like deck scrolls and arcanes and stuff like that just absolutely go crazy after TOA release because so many people were getting into PVM.
Yep.
But on release, when it was like you could do it at 0, you could do it at 150, you could do it at 300, the invocations weren't standardized. Wiping wasn't like that punished on release. I think the release day in terms of like a spectacle, like watching on Twitch and like first completion, etc., was kind of like really lukewarm. And I think that's something that we're keen to, like, when the raid comes out, I think we're really in the camp of wanting it to be everyone's competing on like the same difficulty.
Yes.
You're going like start to finish all the way, and then after the fact, we can take a look at, and we'll probably plan to make it like less punishing to die or to like make practice more accessible, etc. Right? But I just think we don't get many opportunities on Old School to do spectacle on like that scale, where like everyone's like we're all in the office like poring over like every Twitch or Kick POV that there is, etc. And I think it would be like a real missed opportunity if we dropped this again and the content was just you and 4 friends will just pick a boss, practice it over and over, and then just explain it to each other. Feels kind of like weird. Like, so, I don't know.
Now
That's the plan. It's not set in stone, but
is the practice mode just solo?
I don't actually know. I would presume that we would try and let people do it in like bigger group sizes, but I'm not actually sure on the tech limitations of that. I'd imagine like we'd find a way to make it groupable, but I don't know for sure.
Because I do feel like
still in its infancy at the moment.
I do think, okay, well, that's good to know. I just think, yeah, if you want a practice mode, what the best place, like if I'm trying to bring some person that has not experienced it yet and I feel relatively confident, it would be cool to go into a practice mode where me and him go in there and I'm kind of showing him the ropes and we just keep repeating it over and over and over. And so he's not just in there alone and some guy on voice is trying to explain things to him. It's like you're in there with them and doing the content together. I think that could be a little bit more interested in, I don't know. Again, the tech behind all of this sounds like a nightmare. So I wouldn't fault you guys if it is just a more simplistic version. Is it going to be the same scaling though? Because it sounds like TFA is all one scaling, correct? And maybe there will be a hard mode in the future.
Oh, is it just a normal mode, you mean? Or
yeah, like just for the normal raid TFA, is that just all one difficulty, or does it sort of? I mean, there's not like a. Well, I know there's not like any invocations or anything, but it is just one difficulty, and then I'm imagining maybe it scales based on the players. Is that kind of how it's gonna be? Just if it's an 8-man, everything has got like 4 times more HP than like a 2-man, or how does that all work?
Yeah, all we've said so far, and like all that we're like really locked in on, is that it will scale between 2 and 8. Okay. The reason for 8 being the top end is just the grouping system that like TOA uses is probably the nicest grouping system that we've made, and that caps at 8.
Okay.
So,
and then
there's that.
one last question in regards to practice mode. You said something about taking a snapshot of like your inventory. So are supplies being consumed in there, and is it all just your own supplies?
The aim is like no in practice mode, is my understanding. It's just finding a nice way of like making that work without introducing vulnerabilities, I guess, for abuse, etc.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. I guess sort of well, I don't know how much you can share.
I wish I could say more for what it's worth.
Yeah,
like, it's just it's also really difficult because I don't want to leak stuff, like not even like.
Yeah,
I just think it's exciting for people to find out as much as they can, like at the actual like release, right? But
totally, I'm excited, man. Okay, let's take a pivot now from raids 4, and I want to talk just about like the summer sweep up, generally speaking. How much consideration? Sorry. Oh yeah, the bane of your existence right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. This actually, I guess I'll tie this into 2 questions then. First off, how many months now have you been spending on this summer sweep up? And then also the the follow-up question is sort of like, how much consideration is there when deciding what needs to be swept up? Because there's clearly thousands of suggestions that you could go through. Who's deciding what makes it? Is it just based on like, this can be implemented with fewer resources, so we're going to prioritize this? Like, what is the consideration that's being had?
Let's see. The earliest iteration of our design shortlist is the very start of April this year, and most of that was pulled in from stuff that well, not most of, but like a good chunk of that was stuff that we've like seen throughout the year, or some things that we like really wanted to do last year but couldn't, etc. It's kind of like always ongoing. Like, I think Arcane, Rice, me in particular, and just the whole team, like if there's something that you see like coming up a bunch but it's like too big to realistically be handled in like a qual page, it goes somewhere, and that somewhere will eventually wind up on the design shortlist, and then we kind of like whittle that down in like, and it sucks because there's so much stuff that we could sweep up, right? The problem is that you can't, and I'm gonna sound like such a loser. Like, the old school team still, like, you know, we work on a product and it runs as a business, right?
Yeah.
You can't have like this like bottomless pit of we'll do this and we'll do this and we'll do this, and you can't have this like project that takes some indeterminate length of time, and you never know when you're going to be done doing it, and it's always ongoing. But then you kind of like fall into this struggle where stuff that you could do, like rolling, is like too big for qual but too small to be like its own project, and it kind of like sits in this weird limbo and might have to wait for like another sweep up, etc. Which I don't think is inherently a bad thing. I just think it's it sucks if it's something that you're like really waiting for.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, the game's been around forever. I think a lot of grievances have been like fine for a while, and they just like could be better, as opposed to like, this thing is like horrible, it's like the worst thing ever, you need to fix it immediately.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm wrong on that, but yeah.
No, you're right. You're right. A lot of this is just
we're
very
always on the
small
lookout.
grievances.
Yeah. But yeah, just sometimes it takes longer than it would, right? Because it's just a struggle to do everything that we want to do. And then I know I've like been talking about it a little bit because people have been asking about it on Reddit/Twitter, etc. And then you mention sweep up, and then suddenly every time I open Reddit, it's like a sweep up suggestion, and there's like just 15 of them. And they all get documented, and then maybe some of them are small enough that we actually can pull it in. Annoyingly, some of them are stuff that's already been on the shortlist since like the start of April, but now when we put like the sweep up out, people are going to think it was because of that post, and it's always been there. And that annoys me. Like, it shouldn't annoy me, because it should be like validating that we're doing a thing, and then people are asking for a thing and providing like good reasons why, yeah, I agree, this should happen. But you know, when you're like doing something for someone, and then they like ask you to do the thing that you're already doing, and now you don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
In like a really like a petty, just like annoyed, like superhuman way.
Oh yeah.
But yeah. So that's where that goes, and it's like we already have stuff on our 2027 ideas backlog. So that's how sweep up goes. Like the 2027 backlog is big. But again, like, it's, if we put like the sweep up out, for example, and loads of people are like, I think like this is like not super important, and everybody rallies behind like, we really think you should be doing like this like now, then everything changes, right? It's all malleable. Like, we don't expect that we'll put a blog out and just not budge on anything. That's like,
yeah,
just not how sweep up works, really. I don't think we're ever married or so obsessed with any of the changes that we wouldn't be willing to just like pull them if people weren't happy with them, right? We did that last sweep up, I think, with a bunch of stuff. Like, I know we proposed some low-level Slayer drops last year that people were just like not really feeling. We're just like, yeah, off they go, don't care. Like,
yeah.
Because there's always more stuff that you can do, right? And yeah,
it is.
I love it though. It's like my favorite kind of project is like, as much as I love all the flashy new stuff and it's exciting to do raids, being involved in the first project rebalance and the first sweep up and now this sweep up, And like these
Yes.
kind of like big but not like earth shattering, I guess, like changes to old content. I absolutely love. Like the piece of work that I'm most proud of in like my the 4 years here now was the like chambers kind of like mini rework that we did in the tail end of 2023.
Mm-hmm.
I was so gassed about just everything that went into that and like all of
Yep.
the suggestion gathering, the back and forth with devs, and then obviously we had that kind of proposal for like a build your own raid scouting system that was lukewarm, and we pivoted into that. And the feedback was just so good. I loved it. I've got tweets about that update on my fridge, which is sad as hell. Like it's so, I think there's a tweet on there from Boti just saying like how it was like one of his favorite updates that he's seen in years, and my fiance printed it and put it on the fridge, and I did not complain. But I love
Yes.
this stuff. Like I really, really love just taking stuff that people have like an existing relationship with, and hopefully making it like better for them, but without just
Yes.
completely eroding like the game's old school identity. I think it's so important.
I'm glad you're sort of heading it. I mean, I don't know quite heading it, but
I'm not
like,
heading it. I'm a monkey with a keyboard again, but
yeah, but it's good to have that. I'm glad you're, somebody that does appreciate that, because I'm on the same wavelength as you. Like, I much prefer, I'm so much more excited about changes to the game than new updates. Like, I really am. I feel like that's an odd thing. Most people just want like the new exciting shiny object. I'm just like, polish up the old stuff that's getting rusty, like that's the kind of stuff I love. And I love when you make a blog post that's super exciting, that's sharing all the new stuff that's gonna come out in the next few months. I just get so hyped about all that. So I'm glad you specifically are into that kind of stuff, because it would suck if you're more like the shiny object thing and you're like, I gotta stick with all this polishing up. Ugh. So
it's
that
both, right?
makes me feel
It's like
good.
both matter is the thing. Like you, something
Of
like a summer
course.
sweep up like doesn't really bring like new eyes onto the game or anything like that, right? Like when
Mm-hmm.
old school's getting a new raid, like you know that like press outlets, like the kind of like MMO or like PC gaming stuff, are definitely going to be like writing articles about it. Obviously, like doing a sweep up and being like, oh, air spells are slightly better versus birds is like, it's not making headlines, but for people that play and for people that offer like spend all of their time and their passion like offering up feedback and suggestions and putting like really well articulated thoughts as to why stuff should happen, it's important, I think, to us that people like know that we like see them, even when we can't just like get involved in a conversation on every post, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's important for like the audience that we already have, in terms of just like making the game better, and then also just, I think it feels good when people know that we're listening, um, even if we're not always getting everything like smack bang perfect all the time. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I derive like immense satisfaction from doing this stuff, even though it can be trickier to thread the needle, I think, on changes to existing stuff than it is like brand new things.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously people have like preconceptions and biases and prior relationships with like pieces of content that make it like a bit more emotional sometimes.
Yeah.
But
I wouldn't be good at the job. I'd be so emotional about everything. So, uh, yeah, I'm very passionate. I think part of it, actually, this is sort of an interesting topic. Um, I sort of mentioned this in our private conversation, just like of Madai's, that he went on the Behe cast and they were asking like, how much do you actually play these days? And he's been so in the thick of dealing with the community and like just being a community manager and like having all this inundation of RuneScape. And then when you go home, like the last thing you really want to do is just log in and play RuneScape. And I wonder, one, I just want to ask, how's your relationship to playing the game? And then on top of that, I'm seeing it as like, I love playing this game. And so if I had to all of a sudden like sort of lose my identity to become one in a bigger sort of vision for the game, like kind of doing what you're saying, where like your personal takes don't matter with your career. It's like you're doing a job and this is what it is. I feel like it would be a struggle for me, and it would almost, I feel like, inevitably lead me, if I tried to focus on it more, I would lose interest for the game because I would be like sort of lost and like I would lose that emotional side of me that cares about very specific aspects of the game.
um, Yeah, there's a lot there. So I think before I joined, I felt as though I would probably play less, like when I started in the role. Um, I think that was not the case. I think I played a lot more, especially for like the first kind of like 2.5, 3 years. Um, Throughout 2025, I had like two kind of like major surgeries that like took me just completely out of action for like several weeks at a time, both times. And I
Mm.
kind of like fell off the old school wagon a little bit. And then I don't know, it's a weird one. I think I'm playing less at the moment, but not because I'm like burnt out in the game or anything. I think um I've got like combined type ADHD and my life is just kind of one long string of like chaining together hyperfixations. Um which when I'm also like a big PoE enjoyer and they have like a seasonal model means that like every 4 months like a huge train just slams into my brain and floods it with dopamine. So their most recent league, Mirage League, got several hundred hours out of me in not much time at all. And then I wound up jumping into. I've been playing a lot of Albion Online recently, like another like
Mm-hmm.
sandbox MMO that I jumped into for a streamer event a little while ago, and I quite enjoy. I've been enjoying that a lot. I think it's a really interesting study on like systems design in MMOs. Um, Super fun, super cool. Uh, and then I don't know, I just bounce around between like other shit as well. Like I've been playing a bunch of Far Far West at the moment, which is like somewhere between like a Helldivers and the Borderlands, kind of neat. So it's like, but I'm still playing old school on the side. I still consume basically like every piece of old school content that winds up in my sub box, and I feel like I'm subscribed to basically every single old school YouTuber. So like even if old school isn't in like the foreground, it's always in the frame. Do you know what, like outside of working hours? I
Mm-hmm.
think when I was like newer to the role as well, I still like I'm still like reading around and I'll still like jump onto Twitch and such outside of working hours. Although I don't feel like I'm as like present as I was, and I want to get my mojo back and get a little bit more active and be a bit more visible again, like on places like Twitch, etc. Because I feel like I've not been around as much. But in like the early days, I think I was doing like so much in the evenings to the point that it was just like ruining my mood. Like I'd read, well, like not even ruining my mood, but I'd read stuff and then I'd get to thinking about work and then I'd just be like writing notes up at like 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Um,
And then your sleep
and
suffers, I
then
imagine.
yeah, and I think I don't know, it was maybe not so much sleep. I just like I don't feel like I was doing as much as I would have liked with my like fiance, like in the evenings,
Mm.
etc. Like I just get too like sucked into like work stuff. And then since getting our dog Gus, especially, I feel like I'm a lot more able to like separate myself from just being at the PC and stuff. Like he forces me to get out. I think we average like 14,000 steps a day and have done for the last like
Wow.
18 months. Yeah, and I'm still not losing weight because I still eat like shit. But
Hey, I mean, moving
but
your
yeah,
body is a big, big step. I mean, regardless of what you eat, just moving is phenomenal. Weight. I guess weight. Obviously, there's extremes or extreme lows or highs, but like, I think like the movement is very, very good. So I'm proud of you for that. Hell yeah.
yeah. But yeah, I don't know. Currently, I'm playing like less often. I'm still playing though. I sent some. I did like a handful of like chambies the other day. Did a TOA. That was enough for one day. Not because it's bad, but just because I find TOA like really like mentally draining compared to like every other raid.
Totally.
Like, been chipping away at some Yama bits on a GIM. I recently made another iron that I've been like plugging away at as well, which is kind of approaching like CG at the minute, and that's only been like a project for like a couple of weeks. But I hadn't made an iron since. So the first iron I ever made was like Osiris V2 era, right, where it was like Rush 99
Yes.
thieving to upkeep Kingdom while you did like 99 fishing, etc.
Yeah.
Um,
Straight to 99
then
fishing, barbarian fishing. Jesus
yeah,
Christ.
I did it.
You're a
I,
beast.
re-
That most people give
I was
up.
rewatching Game of Thrones at the time, and I was like, damn, season 8 still sucks even when you're fishing. Um, but and then I made one that was more the kind of like the Bofa Rush sort of like route that everyone kind of started to gravitate towards instead, like the
Yeah.
and then I made one recently because I hadn't really been around on like a new enough iron to appreciate like the role that like P moons and TDs
Yeah,
and that kind of stuff plays in like how Iron Man progresses now. So I was kind of interested in that. Um, so I'm jumping around. I'm just like I'm into other stuff at the moment. I'm still watching a bunch, and obviously because I kind of handle a lot of like the old school creators and stuff like that. I feel like I generally have like an ear to the ground and everything. Like I still know what's going on even if I'm not actively playing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't think my job like has an impact on how much I enjoy the game. Like the game's the game, the job's the job.
Yeah, that's good. How is the team handling polling fatigue when we see so many different, I mean, even in regards to the summer sweep up and things, like there's going to be so many things that are being polled. And I just wonder, for the average player base that is probably not reading every single poll blog and just the sheer amount of polls entering the game, do you see an effect on the player base of just too many polls, and how is polling fatigue just perceived broadly, like among the team?
Obviously, we had like cool improvements to the polling system a while ago. That means we can do more stuff with them. Even like us as CMs can just like make polls now, as opposed to needing like a dev to make them and specifically hotfix them in, which is kind of cool. And then the whole like opinion surveying stuff that we can do with matrix questions is rad. There's a bunch of neat stuff there. I think broadly we should. I think it's difficult to find the right balance of like how much we should utilize that for feedback gathering, and like how you should marry up the kind of stuff that we get from like an opinion survey, for example, with the more, I guess, qualitative feedback that you get from just like reading conversations and engaging with people on topics. Blog fatigue is definitely something that I think we're like cognizant of, but that's more like case by case. I think it just depends on like the moment, right? Like, and sometimes it means that we'll push stuff back, like a little bit if it's like a non-essential blog. Like I know I was quite conscious when I did the TFA rewards primer blog that there was obviously like a bunch of stuff going on with Leechfin at the time, and they were kind of like between blogs on that particular project as well. And I think it can definitely get to a point where it feels like you sort of like can't win, because we like want to communicate our thoughts and like go back and forth with people and like listen and like propose new things, etc. But it does feel like people hit a point where they kind of get like annoyed at the back and forth. um, so I don't know. I don't know if there's like a perfect through line. It's definitely something we're cognizant of though when it comes to have we put out a bunch of blogs at this time? Should we hold this one? What are the vibes like in the community at the moment? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that was a satisfactory answer to your question, to be honest.
No, it is.
But
I really just wanted to sort of hear your general thoughts, because I really didn't know where this was going to take us, like just asking this, because in my view, even as a full-time creator for this game, like I still don't feel up to date with like everything that's going on, because there is just so much. And obviously not
yeah,
everything interests me. So like anything that's like leagues related, I just kind of like skip over. But I end up sort of missing certain things even as a creator. And so I wonder for like the average player, how they feel about just like these sorts of like endless polls. And if that is ultimately a good thing or a bad thing. Like I'm obviously a huge fan of the back and forth. You said like maybe that's too much, but I love when I'm feeling like we're being communicated with very transparently. But I do get as well, like if there's too many backs and forth, it's like, where even are we in the conversation? Because if you miss just one of the previous things where you're clarifying something and then you're moving on to the next thing, like, wait, what were you talking about? Like, I thought this was coming into the game. I felt like warding, to, trace back almost a decade now, like thinking of warding where there was an original pitch and then everything basically got cleaned up. And like, we're like, no, this is actually the state of warding. But people skipped so many blog posts because there was just so much information on it. It was like they sort of checked out. And I guess I just wonder
yeah.
about the checking out.
I think there's definitely like an upper limit to how much you can like ask people to care about something before they kind of like lose interest. And equally, I think there's like a bit of an upper limit to how many things you can ask people to care about at once.
Mm.
Which is always like a bit of a struggle as well. When you do something like when we do like a summit, for example, it can be quite difficult if you're like a CM who's working on a project which is a bit more in the background, if all of the conversation that springs up is just about something else. Like, so yeah, I don't know. I think it's something we try and avoid generally. Obviously, sometimes it's kind of like unavoidable. Like sometimes we need to go back and forth. Sometimes we can maybe hold fire a little bit. Sometimes there's like too many things happening at once. I don't know. There's no one size fits all kind of like rule of thumb for how people like think or feel about it. I think stuff like that is like really vibe based.
Mm-hmm.
And I think CM more than like a lot of roles. Maybe a controversial take if there are other community managers in the industry listening. I think CM is like not exclusively, but I think having like decent gut instincts and like just I think vibe checking goes like quite a long way in CM in terms of like, I don't feel like this is a good idea right now, and I maybe couldn't articulate why, but you have to trust me. And if you're right often enough, people will start to trust you.
Yeah.
Obviously, like results based analysis, but yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's a satisfactory answer. It really is, I think, just as a CM, especially with how much experience you have with it now, it's sort of a vibe check. Like, okay, did we just have one of those really outrageous posts that everyone's yelling about on Reddit? Maybe it's not the best time to post something like this. So I think, yeah, it probably is just a lot really personalized and really just in the moment. What does it feel like? Let me ask you. We'll keep this segment somewhat brief because I know it will just be sort of like personal takes, I imagine, because I don't think there's anything like in the works. But there's been a lot of talk about a Corp rework. The fact that Corp was originally a group boss, and now it feels like for half the player base that are Iron Men killing Corp, that it's not a group boss. It's a solo experience that feels very jank to some people. Some people love the current state of it, and they love the identity that Corp has, and they wouldn't want to see that lost. But at the same time, I think there would be a much larger subgroup of the players that actually would want to see some changes. So I wonder personally, and maybe if there's been any discussions on the team, how do you feel about Corp and just a rework entirely, or just the state of it at the moment?
I will offer you my personal opinion as an old school RuneScape player and not as a Jagex moderator first.
All right.
I'm putting a disclaimer at the front of that.
Yeah.
I do not care about Corp. None of the items are useful or relevant for like an iron.
Yeah.
Really, they're just kind of like endgame flex items, and it feels like year on year there's like some new tech which is like an extra kill per hour or like more smooth kills per hour, or like some gear will come out that will just make it better, right? Like Fang was like pretty big for Corp solos, etc. And then people kind of like started doing a bit less of the chickening stuff and started just like dropping in inventive supplies. For me as a player, I just don't care about Corp. Like, it's not. I don't stand to gain anything from it except like a couple of like log slots or whatever. Arcane's kind of good, I guess, but it's like I have a shadow, so I'm not.
Yeah. Yep.
Where am I using it? Like Nilo, if I'm bringing like an Iac, I guess, but meh.
And you have the
Like,
Eladinus Ward that people will just use instead of an Arcane. I mean, obviously you could combine them, but yeah.
I think that's like the big problem, right? As well, like Corp probably occupies like more space where like if you don't have a shadow, like obviously it is like more relevant.
Yeah.
I guess for me as a player, when I think about like my own progression, it's like, is it worth me going and getting an arcane, or is it worth me just spending more time at TOA to kind of like supplant the utility of the fortified Eladinus Ward, etc.? But I don't know. As a CM and not as a player, it is complicated. Like, I get why people feel that way. Obviously, while not the majority of the player base, Irons are still like a huge chunk of the player base. I just don't really know how best to handle it. I think, even though it's like a logical fallacy, I do think there's like some. I think some people's fears about like slippery slopes, etc., or like we do that to Corp, and then we're doing it to Next, and then we're doing it to God Wars, and then Iron doesn't feel all that different from the main game. And I think like part of like the fun and the challenge of Iron Man mode is like maybe you have to do some of this janky shit to make it work. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But obviously that's kind of inconsistently applied because you can raid with other people. So I don't know. I think it's kind of like an impossible problem. I don't think the team are like inherently like opposed. I just think in a year where you can only do so many things, it's like probably like a lower priority for those reasons.
Yep.
Then like, you know, that time could probably be spent doing something a bit more impactful. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that's like a great answer, but it's not something I've like chatted about with the team in like some time.
Yeah, no,
Um,
makes sense. And it
and
really
just
doesn't feel super pressing because it isn't offering, a Tebow level item that's everybody's trying to get. A lot of people just fully ignore Corp. And I think that's partly the reason I do think it's in a bad state is just the fact that almost no Iron Men really are engaging with it. It used to be something that people engaged with kind of because almost like a lack of content. So like when you get to that end game, it's sort of that's what you do. But now there's like the collection log and all these other things that people go for, and it just doesn't feel as important. So
I
okay.
mean, it just still like filters into that clog grind a little bit, right? It's like
Yeah.
once like if you've got like Blessed Hide and an MSB, what are you doing clues for? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I
I just
guess
does everything need to like and again I'm like speaking as a player or more just like
mhm.
interested for your thoughts, I suppose, but does everything need to have some really like cut and dry use case? Is it not fine for some content to kind of be like just flex or like some thing that you chip away at like towards the end of
Hmm.
like, you know, maybe you're like an endgame eye and you're just like bored of like raiding and you're not getting like, I don't know, your kits from Tub or whatever, and you just do some corp, etc. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a tough one, especially because it's been in the game so long. Because when you mention that, and this kind of follows into my next one, which is just have you guys had any thoughts, and you personally as well, on Nightmare and Fasani's Nightmare? Just that, because that's a newer piece of content, it feels more appropriate to do something to make it feel like it fits in a place in the game rather than it being a flex thing. The Corp I can kind of see is it's such an old piece of content that it can kind of just remain this classic archaic kind of covered with cobwebs sort of that you try to make, try to speed up the kills every year by, like a kill per hour. But with Fasani's, it's like you still have this beautiful opportunity to sort of tie it into the like entering late game where it's a route you can take. So instead of going for Oath Plate, you can go get your Inquisitors. And I feel like is the missed opportunity there where it's just, oh man, like I mean, if it were up to me, I'll let you share your thoughts. I guess I'll share first. Is just if Nightmare was just Fasani's Nightmare and it was just in the center, you just scrap normal Nightmare entirely. It's just Fasani's, and then you can do it up to like maybe 2 to 5 players. I would even say just a 2-player experience would be super fun to like have it feel like Yama. You go in there, it's all the same scaling, so nothing's changing. It's just a faster fight. And then the drop rates are again increased to make it feel like a worthwhile side grade thing that you can go for that isn't like only for the Iron Man that already have full Torv, already have a scythe, already have all this crap, and they're just doing it for clogs. That's the feel, like the pit in my stomach that I'm just like, damn, like this is such cool content, and hardly anybody does it until you don't need it anymore. Like you don't need this stuff when you're actually doing it, and that's the sad part.
Yeah, I'll just quickly on the corp thing because
Yeah.
I'm attempting to replay my response in my head and like worry that I've like sounded committal. It's like a never say never. Like I don't know on the corp stuff in particular. I think like Kieran is like somewhat keen on like taking a look at it at some point. It's just like lower down the list of stuff. As for Nightmare, the kind of unofficial mascot of the summer sweep up. Uh,
Ooh.
given that, well, I mean, it's mentioned.
Okay.
Um, I wouldn't say in exactly like what way.
I'm excited.
It's kind of tough, right? You had this like group boss, and then a solo boss spawned off of it with rates like just kind of like based on like what the group boss rates were. I I think Nightmare kind of enjoys, well, not enjoys, but suffers from like a lot of baggage from people that, you know, like Nightmare sucks is just like a popular take that gets regurgitated.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think all of the people that think Nightmare sucks have done it since a phase was removed, which does speed things up a lot. But I think between some people on the team, arguably Nightmare's like biggest issue is like the staff and like all of the orbs. If you're like, and this is like, again, it's an Iron Man perspective question, right? So that we're clear, like the GP per hour is kind of like broadly fine for a main eventually. But it's kind of like an Iron Man perspective question that like ink sits in like a weird spot and it's just annoying to get. But you have this drop table, which is kind of like bloated out by 3 orbs and a staff, which kind of like don't really do anything and sort of just like feel bad to get. Like Eldritch doesn't really have. I think Eldritch enjoyed like a little bit of time in the limelight when it kind of saw some use in Inferno, but it's not that popular, and you shouldn't really need to like milk specs in the Inferno these days. Harm is like weird because there's this like chicken and egg scenario with we don't want to like it's a struggle for us to make elemental weaknesses like relevant end game because standard spells have to kind of be balanced around the harm existing, and that makes it difficult because you can't expect people to go and get a harm. And then volley is just a PvP weapon. I think there's some feeling for us that it would probably be better to find alternate sources for the orbs, especially consider what the staff does, and then just increase the weight of like ink accordingly, so it didn't feel so unreasonable to get. And then obviously there's like considerations about increasing the utility of ink. I know it's obviously a really popular suggestion to combine it with Justy to make it tankier. Which I don't think is like bad. I just think obviously it has baggage when it comes to you're getting like one really rare drop and then going for another group of really rare drops, and often at raids completing an armor set is like more expected time to complete than getting a mega rare. And that's like kind of maybe an egregiously long pathway for like usable armor.
It feels gimmicky too.
Yeah, that's the tough thing. And then
of them.
You have people with like accounts built around ink that they spend like hundreds and thousands of hours on that are like sitting at 35 defense or whatever. And then it's kind of difficult to like navigate that with items that already exist, so it's tough. Nightmare's just like really it sucks because for Sani's it's still hands down one of the best solo encounters in the entire game. Like it's such a gorgeous fight.
Yeah.
But everything surrounding like the why you engage with it and the what you get out of it is so just spicy all the time. And I don't know that we have like the right answers. But there's some mention of it in the sweep up. I won't say much more.
Okay. Yeah.
I wouldn't expect any changes, but we're gonna yap about some bits and see how people feel about them.
All right. Well, cool. That's like been my hobby horse for like half a decade now. Nightmare. When did Nightmare come out? 2020? 2021? It's 2020, maybe.
At least 6. I don't know.
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, I'm one of those psychopathic players that actually, clocked in like 1,200 hours in that place at like normal Nightmare.
You and Lake, right?
What?
You and Lake.
Yeah,
Lake's mace grind was the
me and Lake were you're totally right. It was me and Lake doing that on stream, and then we had a couple other psychopathic Iron Men doing it off stream. But yeah, that was just dreadful. But and it feels like I would be the player that's like most like don't change it because I already had to suffer. But like throughout the whole thing, and Fasani's and everything, like I've always been the number one advocate to like making this much more bearable. And what I've seen over the years is every change to the drop rates and every change, just slashing a phase, the whole Fasani's thing, there has never been any uprising of like complaints about, hey, you're destroying the economy or anything like that. It's just every single change that you guys have made that has made things quote unquote easier or just better or, just less time to put in has always gone sort of accepted like broadly by the community. Like nobody ever has a problem with it. I'm just thinking, why not just not be scared of it and just like make the changes that really would feel like it's finally in the perfect spot sort of. And the way I see that going forward is just making it so Inquisitors make sense as an armor in 2026. So putting it at least somewhere on par with Oathplate, and that can still be a 30 defense variant of it with maybe like some sort of enhancement. Maybe it can even be a similar system to like mining shale and then like equipping, like fusing the armor in, so you have like 2 different variations of it, and then just drastically increasing the drop rates for the 8th time or whatever. Just rip the band-aid off, because I really do feel like, man, that armor would be so cool to get in replacement of Yama. It's like it's an alternate route, similar power. The crush bonus doesn't even really matter that much anymore, because you have the Yama horn and you got like these other things. Yeah, I would really love to see that sort of put into a proper space and just rip the band-aid off on drop rates. And who knows? I mean, again, like, this is very drastic, but just deleting normal nightmare would be nice, and then having like the main center area just be the Fasanis. And again, like 2 to 5 players would be just so fun. Even if it was just 2 players, it's like it feels like a Yama type vibe now. You go in with your friend, you beat it down, you both have a chance of getting the drop. That's exciting as hell. That would be so cool in my view. But I understand the complication, just the priorities and everything else that's going on, and then just getting community feedback, because as much as I would love something to just immediately put in the game, there's so many steps to get stuff, approved and everything else. So I understand the reality of it.
I think we're always on edge about drastic as well, right? Like, there's always the risk of like it setting a precedent that just leads to kind of like an accelerationism when it comes to like the kind of changes people request. And like, by and large, we still think it's probably better to like move stuff bit by bit and see how that goes than do like a whole bunch at once. The same as like, you might remember like shortly-ish after like TOA released, for example, we made like a bunch of small changes at once that like weren't all that much in a vacuum, but then pretty quickly we're like, holy shit, like the sum of these changes is like the rage is like complete piss, like it's way too easy.
Yeah.
And then had to like pull it back, and then it's just like it's easier to kind of like understand, or it's easier to take the risk of making like a small change and then coming back and making another one when it comes to like, what if ink were like 10% more common? Do you know what I mean? Than like, what if ink were twice as common? Is like, it's so hard to understand exactly what that will do. Even if it might not do much, right? And like, people might confidently assert that, but economies are complicated, old school is complicated. It's just really difficult to know. Like, and that just makes it like scary to do, right? Because once you make a drastic change like that, if you go back on it, then you get the kind of like, oh, abuse early, abuse often, like crowd.
Yeah.
And then you can't really win. And it's also like it's difficult when obviously like Oathplate is kind of the comparison point that you brought up.
Yeah.
I think we probably have some regrets about Oathplate. I think it's fair to say that we feel it's probably still too common, or Yama is still too easy. And while I think obviously the time to complete is like reasonable for Irons. It's just like it did have like a pretty substantial effect on Torva. And it does like, it just warps like the player journey, I think, a little bit. Like, it's really good for how attainable it is. I think we feel as though we maybe didn't get the numbers quite right on that front, and would probably do it differently if we had the chance, but it's difficult at this point because like the cat's been out of the bag for some time now. Like, Yama's been in the game for ages. Going back and saying, oh, Oathplate's way rarer, or we're making Yama way harder, is just not going to be popular with many people.
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest issue with it really was just like the sort of like being able to use Demon Bane weapons, and Demon Bane weapons are fucking just nuclear. I mean, imagine it just wasn't a demon. Imagine you're fighting something that's not a demon. That would have been a much more end game fight. You would not have like those sort of mid game players rolling up and just being able to slap it around with an Ember Light or whatever that they can just easily get from completing while Gothic sleeps. Go get your synapse, and you're like pretty much just good to go. I feel like if you were still wielding a zombie axe, nobody really wants to do that with you at that point. You're just gonna not be doing as much damage. And so I feel like that was one of the issues. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't actually personally have a problem with the drop rates. I just think Nex needs to be looked at. Nex needs to be more attractive as a grind. Like, you don't need to change anything about the fight, really. It's just like the hurdle of getting there. And then again, if you're running a 4-man in Nex and you have one of your teammates die, you gotta fucking sit around now and wait for the guy to like re-KC. Like that is so obnoxious. And if it was like a simple change as like all God Wars dungeon KC, all the KC that you get is permanently there. Whenever you leave, whenever you die, it all stays. Like that would just instantly be a global improvement that I feel like would totally change the feel of God Wars, and it would allow, like, for example, a spiritual creature task that everybody skips. You'd actually be like, oh, I can actually just go build up some of my God Wars dungeon KC while also getting some Slayer XP. And like, this is not the worst task ever assigned by Konar anymore, because I'm going to be happy that I did this for future God Wars dungeon grinds. And like, there's just elements of that hurdle that make Nex so just awful. And if all those hurdles would remove, then it actually would feel in a relatively healthy spot compared to like the Oathplate grind. It just, I think Nex just has a very bad taste in some people's mouth for just the forced sort of team aspect. Most people don't want to do duos, and then if you have, again, one player die, you're waiting around. If one player has to go take the bathroom break, it's just like there's just so much extra friction with that. And I think that can be looked at rather than making, you know, Oathplate even rarer, which I don't think would be the move.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm not saying we have any plans to do anything to Oathplate for what it's worth. I just, yeah, in like the grand scheme of things, it's right. Like Torvo dropped like 100 mil plus in value in less than a year.
Yeah.
With no other kind of like pressure on it except Oathplate existing.
Yeah, it's true.
It's also like difficult because like killing Nex in like a duo is like one of the more profitable things you can do in the game in a duo. It's like really up there. So like any kind of like downward pressure on Torva like really just impacts like a high level moneymaker. I don't hate the idea of like KC staying, etc., and removing friction and all that jazz. But again, I'm not a designer. I'm sure somebody smarter than me might take some umbrage with the idea. It's also just like, I don't know, on Oathplate in particular, I think from just like a player journey perspective, like I think it's easy to feel like something is a mistake when you release it and progression kind of warps around it almost instantly.
Yeah.
It's like the speed at which Iron Man progression kind of pivoted into P Moon's TD's Oathplate is nigh on unprecedented for like a lot of the updates that we make. Like it was such a like everybody knew instantly like this was a crazy efficient like route to just get like absolutely insane gear on an iron.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't know. Learnings, right? Like such as working on a live service game with so many passionate and opinionated players, right? Like sometimes we're gonna misstep, and players might feel otherwise, right? Like I wouldn't begrudge anyone for thinking that Oathplate is fine because it's not like the worst thing ever. But I just think when like we reflect on it, there's like bits that we kind of wish we done a bit differently.
Yeah.
I also think Oathplate is like quite cheap relative to like how good it is, which is hopefully that's not that spicy a take, but obviously it's still like expensive, right? But
yeah, I don't know. I don't really see it. Yeah, I mean, I think again, like just to reiterate, just briefly, is just I think the fact that it's a demon just makes, again, because the demon Dane weapons are so fucking powerful. I think it just is a real quick route to get there because you get those demon weapons so quickly. Feels like you only
I
need
think
one
that
of them.
might have been circumvented by it being quicker though, because it's like the same applies at Doom, right? And that's
I mean, Doom's another one of those things that could be argued similarly.
I don't think we have many reservations about Doom or how any of that stuff landed, to be honest. Doom is so good, dude. What a boss.
And it feels difficult. The difference between, you know, Yama and Doom is like Yama, you can kind of just duo it and kind of relax after just a little bit. I know Doom, obviously, I still have not actually done Doom. I've watched a lot of the content, but I've gotten
magic, man. You'll love it.
I've heard good, incredible things about it. So I'm really excited to get there. In fact, I'm already pretty much locked and loaded to do it on Squat Cam, but I've been playing my hardcore so actively that now I'm trying to build up this account. So, but that feels more appropriate because it feels like the harder sort of challenge, and it's solo, and it's like, it's just more daunting than I think Yama is. So
Yeah, Yama definitely. I don't even think that's a bad thing for what it's worth. Like,
Nah,
and
nah.
I hope that I'm not coming off as some like disgruntled elitist or anything. Like, but it's like part of why like Chambers is my favorite raid is you kind of like get out what you put in. Like, and if you like really can't be bothered, you can kind of like unga bunga brain off. Like
Yeah.
you go tank tightrope. I'm just gonna chill over here and just slap it. Um, but then there's like a bunch of complexity you can like opt into to make it quicker and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think like Yama, obviously like if you're a main, you can make a bunch of money doing like the Oathplay acquisition contracts and such. But if you're like in a duo and you're just maging, it's like so like it's so brain off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I think also like I don't know. I think there's a good chunk of stuff that we do differently with Yama, but I still think it's like sick. I'm a big fan of it being in the
Yeah.
game. I love the vibes of a bunch of it. I get why people were maybe a bit disgruntled at it being like billed as like an end game encounter and then landing where it did, but yeah.
I think if it were up to me and it was just deciding to change either Yama or to change Nex, because those are the things we're really comparing, it would be make Nex more fun. Like just make that whole process a little bit more streamlined, seamless, which would probably have broader implications for God Wars Dungeon in general. And then you kind of just fix the issue. And I even think, this is a personal take, that Torva itself could be like those drop rates of just the armor set in general could be increased, because you also have to keep in mind, at least for the Iron Man progression, they also have to get Bandos, and having at least the armor a little bit more common would kind of fall in line with what I imagine the team is kind of feeling about Nightmare, where as long as Inquisitor is a little bit more common, it feels like there's an actual reason to kind of go there. But you'd still obviously have the incentive to get the Van Braces, which are also common, but like also the Nile Horn is there, which is a huge thing to get a ZCB. Ancient God Sword's sick as well, but a lot of people don't care specifically for that. But yeah, I would simply say Yama's in the good spot because that's fun. Everybody fucking loves killing Yama. It's just great. Not many people. There are some dedicated people, and I actually enjoy personally. I enjoy the Nex experience. It does feel more classic. Feels like sort of a tank test, and feels like how can you mitigate as much damage as you can by doing step unders. I love that shit. I do think it's fun, but I just hate the fact that one mistake and now it's back to the drawing board for 30 minutes waiting for your teammate. It's like, holy crap. So
Yeah, I get you. I think it's always just a delicate line to walk right between like the Iron Man journey versus the majority of the player base still being mains. And
yeah, it is a thing that
economically it's like it's not easy to just stroll into a room and be like, we should make this more common just because.
yeah, it's fair.
But yeah, there's like I don't know. It's just there's a lot of stuff that like feels like a slam dunk. Like you should just like change this number, but obviously there's a lot that goes into it when it comes to modeling what it might do, and then everything has knock-on effects to everything else, right? Like Oathplate had like big effects on Torva. Does Torva price changing go on to have like effects on Oathplate? Does that ripple elsewhere, etc.? Like there's all kinds of stuff like that. That's just why we tend to be like relatively conservative when it comes to what we do to existing content for the most part. I think sometimes we'll take like a sledgehammer to something and maybe get it wrong, maybe get it right, but
I mean, I love that Oathplate is just, first of all, it's fucking sexy, especially Radiant. Holy shit. When you guys first dropped that art concept on Twitter, I was all about it. I was glazing it, and I even had a lot of fucking haters in the comments saying that you like this looks ugly. Turns out like it's fucking like the most sexy armor in the game, and like everybody agrees basically. But I was happy to jump on that because I've always been super hypercritical of most like aesthetics that come with armor. I was very hypercritical about Masori, for example, but I knew right when I saw Radiant Oathblade, I'm like, this is the sexiest thing I've ever seen. Keep it. And I'm so glad they did. I'm glad they didn't really make any changes to it. I was worried.
yeah, I think there was a period of time where we were like quite worried, and I think passing feedback about passing as in PAR, SING, about like visuals and aesthetics is kind of tough because it's so vibes based and like a bit harder to articulate like rationale and rhyme/reason, etc. I think we were definitely like kind of worried like leading up to it a lot, but it did feel like a lot of stuff like quietened down after it came into the game. Obviously there are still some people that like don't really gel with it that much, and maybe they're just kind of resigned. Or we did float the idea of like doing like a survey after the fact, but it got so quiet that we kind of decided
Skipped it.
against.
Yeah, why even bring it back up if it's already quiet?
Well, it could be the case that it got quiet because we said we might float a survey, etc. But I think they look better in game than people thought they would initially.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's another one. It's just really difficult to navigate art stuff, especially. I think like Yam is a project where for me personally, I felt like there's a lot that I could have done differently. I think I made like a bunch of mistakes as like a CM on that project and had a lot of learnings to take from it. But
yeah. All right. I have two more broad topics. One of them is going to be regarding just the perspective of you being a player versus now being behind the scenes of a lot of these projects. What you kind of, well, let me read this. And then the last thing I'll get just to preview it is just going to be basically if you could greenlight any game jam project, what would it be? But let's start with the first, which is how has your perspective changed from being a player to being behind the scenes? Is there something that most players you imagine are confused about when speculating what the team is up to? So maybe just broad sentiments across the community that you see of like maybe almost like misinformation. Like what do you think is the most confusing thing to a player that you now see as, okay, this is just a part of the job. Like this is a part of the process. Is there anything that comes to mind?
there's kind of a lot, but it's like equally like players aren't a monolith, right? And like everyone feels differently about different things. I think it's definitely over the years you get like not like worn down. I don't know how to describe it, but like the kind of increasing realization and like understanding of like working in the games industry, you're still a business and like it's still a product. And for someone like when it like the sweep up conversation, right? About there's so much stuff that we could do, but you can't just have this like bottomless pit of like resource that you never know when it's going to end and when you can like pull devs onto other projects, etc. I feel like that's the biggest shift is not not like becoming a company man or anything, but making a lot more peace with the idea that you can't just spend unlimited time on stuff. I can't just keep pinging suggestions to Arcane, being like, "We should do this now for this one. We should do this now. We should do this now. We should do this now."
Yeah.
And obviously that kind of like bleeds into like this year and like bigger projects like Blood Moon Rises and Raids and Sweep Up's not like a big project, but it's like a lot of like front loaded work on designing solutions and things like that. And just how much they require from like an out, just how much work they take is like really intense. Obviously, you know, it's like back in the day we got like 30 quests a year, and now we're getting like one Grandmaster quest this year, etc. And Red Reef released today as we're recording. Or
Yep.
I just think the way the old school operates now, with the kind of like community that we've cultivated, the conversations that we have to have about every project and such, and then the constant drive to like really deliver like bigger and beyond when it comes to like Blood Moon Rises, like should feel like cool, even cooler than like DT2, right? Because I think like While Gothic Sleeps, even though it was like a port and everyone knew what they were getting, kind of it fell a bit flat with people after DT2 being so just grandiose.
Oh yeah.
I don't know, that feeling that there's like nothing happening, or like that like it's been like a dead year, which I like could get, but it's just really difficult to explain to people and say like trust me when like people are so busy on stuff that is so hard to like make happen. And then obviously there's always like stuff going on like in the background, like pre-production stuff, right? Like just like designing concepts and stuff and then filtering through them to see what we might want to pitch at like a summit and see if we can get it greenlit and if it'd be a good fit for the game and such. Like yeah, I don't know if that's like a misconception or anything. It's just
I mean, it is for
weird
me.
to
I mean,
like peek behind the curtain, I suppose, a little bit and see. You know, it's not like a scrappy indie game. Even
yeah,
though our team is still like quite small, I think in the grand scheme of things. Like, obviously, there's a lot of names at the bottom of a news post, but it's like they're not all developers, right? Like some are developers, some are artists, some are CM, some work in marketing, some work in like IT or like
yeah,
network infrastructure and stuff like that. I don't know. I feel like we do quite a lot with what we've got. like, but yeah.
yeah. That makes sense. I
Was that a
mean,
bullshit response? Did that?
no, not at all, not at all. Because this is something I've had to sort of just kind of come to terms with, is just the fact that yes, this is a business. This is not a passion project run by passionate. This is not just Andrew Gower in his basement anymore. This is like a full on, billion-dollar company and stuff that's running something, and they are trying to prioritize obviously what they think will be best for the game and also for profits and whatever else. So it all makes sense, and I think I'm a little bit more. I don't know if it comes across in like my rambles and casts and stuff, but I feel like I am a little bit more patient with just kind of the state of the game, and honestly, kind of taking a bird's eye view of everything, like just a huge broad perspective, and just see what we have. Because when I tend to hyper focus and hyper fixate on certain things that I don't like about the game, it's very easy for me to just quickly make a 180 and be like, okay, look at all this beautiful content that we have in the game, and look how excited I am to log in every day still at 30, almost 31 years old. And I'm like, you guys have done something clearly super right in my books. And the fact that the player count is increasing, you guys are, it's whatever formula you guys are following is working very well. And I think, I don't know, the game's in good hands, which always makes me super happy. And like, again, the fact that I can reach out to you and you're, more than willing to come on and just talk, like that means like that's like an incredible thing that I try not to take for granted, is just the fact that we can talk with the team directly and they're so willing to come on and be transparent and share their own passion for the game and what's going on. So like, yeah, at least in my view, I'm very fucking grateful for your well, one, for you personally, and for also just like the whole team that's been working on this game for all these years, and somehow it's managed to work. Because again, we're playing like patchscape. It's just like patch after patch after patch, and it's impressive what you guys have been able to accomplish. As
Yeah, there's definitely a reason no other game is trying to release updates every week. It's really hard.
yeah. All right. Last question, and then we'll kind of wrap things up with a few thoughts. But if you could greenlight any past Game Jam project to come into the main game right now, what would it be and why?
Dog Quest.
Dog Quest?
Do you not remember the Dog Quest?
Oh, was that where you can get like one of those like 5 model dogs or something? They came out with like a what was that called? Do you have a link to that?
Um,
Let me
ooh.
see. It wasn't just called Dog Quest, was it?
It's
Oh
from the
my god, I
first
looked up
game.
I looked up Dog Quest, and the first thing I get, or OSR's Dog Quest, the first thing I get is Slayer Task Dog, just killing dogs. Oh god, I don't think that's
I
the one
mean,
me.
that's a quest of sorts.
Let's see
What
this.
was it? Dogs of Gillinor. I think a good chunk of it, kind of the
Yes.
assets and stuff wound up getting used in one of the Christmas events down the line.
Yeah, okay, now I remember this. Dogs of Gillinor.
Just because, like selfishly, is the CM who I feel like I frequently find myself engaging on like all of the like really like spicy stuff and like the like really heady thought-provoking bits. Who's like no one's complaining about this, right? Like you just like you get a dog, man. Like and you like yeah. It
I
would
want
just be
that.
cool. like um obviously I don't know, they take up a pet spot and that's kind of rough and there's the rough pun
That
not intended, but I wish.
I don't think it's rough at
Prefer it's
all.
not with
We
that.
we need this. Also, I guess just a personal touch on this. I'm gonna be moving in with my girlfriend, and she has a dog, and I've never lived with a dog before. So I'm
Hmm.
like, I've got to meet her dog, and he's just such a lovely dog. And so I'm like, you know what?
What
having a
breed?
little dog in game on top of, having now a dog in real life, I think I'd be down with this. I forgot about this, honestly. I kind of forgot about this whole game jam project. I remember seeing it. This is cool.
It was like the
And there's too
first
many
thing I
cats in
did.
the game.
Wow, add them as a Slayer task. But that's crazy. I started on when did I start? I think I started on like March 28th or something, and this game jam started on April 4th. So it was just like brand new, fresh face. You're like, hi guys. And, just like vaguely jumped onto the Wilderness expansion at the time, which was like super cool. And now it's like, like 4 years later, I would probably not want to work on like a game jam that was so like speculative. I think I really want to like pick up some RuneScript. I really like to just work on like Brutus, for example. Calboss was like a
Yeah.
game jam project. It was like done and dusted in like 2 weeks. Um, I'd love to be in a position where I could like do stuff like that. I think it would bring me so much satisfaction to like work on something and like have it in a state where it was like nearly done, as opposed to like thinking of just ideas, right? But it's like anyone could have idea. Like the games industry, I don't think really needs ideas people. Like because if you can't make your idea happen, like all of the people that can make their ideas happen also just have ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'm very much more of like I think I'm really quite more practically minded these days, and would really just like to work in like a game jam on stuff that's like small and achievable and like feasible to release, rather than here's this thing that would take like 6 to 12 months to
And a
make,
whole team, like a massive
and like a whole
undertaking.
bunch of back and forth and like a bunch of
Yeah.
stuff. Like, yeah, I'm a big fan of game jam projects that are a bit more manageable in scope, I suppose. But then like, I don't know, Forestry started out as a game jam project as well. There's just like, I don't know, I like seeing stuff happen from game jams. Like
Yeah, same.
I think Garden of Death came from that same game jam, which is one of my favorite quests ever. I think if you're like a Quest Helper exclusively user, um, you probably hate that quest because you just like walk around and type stuff in. But if you're someone that actually enjoys the kind of like puzzle solving, like style of like old school quests, I think Garden of Death is just like so wonderful. I think it's a stellar quest. I absolutely love it. And a lot of people really don't, but I'm a huge fan.
Mm. Yeah, I would not mind some dogs running around the game. Make them run too. Don't just make them walk. If they
Make them
follow you.
run. I wish mine would run less, to be honest.
Well, you can have one style of the dog walk. Gus walks, right, in the in game.
um,
Or does he
yeah,
just
he
stand there?
bit me in a playtest once. The bastard.
Uh, uh,
Yeah.
I'm pulling this
He's in
up.
the what quest is it? Final Dawn. Yeah,
Oh, I just
it was a
am
cute
look.
surprise. I didn't know. I was like, we just had a big like for like bigger projects, we do like a couple of like all day or like long form playtests. So for like Valamore, I think that was like the third batch. It was like across 2 days, where it was like do all the quests, like explore a bunch of stuff. Then we had like Veil Totems. There was Doom in the mix.
Mm-hmm.
It was
You
like
know.
his 2 days would go wild, and somebody was like, "Oh, there's an Easter egg that you might care about," and like the
Uh,
quest was like the last thing that I did, and I just spent so long just like going all over all of the new areas, being like, "What am I supposed to be noticing?" And then I like did the quest, and I was like, "Oh my god, it's my dog!" And he bit me. He hit me a 3, I think, and we turned that down
uh,
afterwards. But
what's funny, actually? You mentioned Varlamore. I think it was Mod Jerv that I had on last year, and
the
she
goat.
was showing like some of the models, that of like the art and like the new character models and stuff that came out, and it was the first time babies were introduced into RuneScape, old school RuneScape, like a baby, because we had like gnome
That is
children
kind
and
of
other
odd.
children. What?
That's odd, isn't it? That's crazy
Yeah,
that you get
yeah.
Dukes of Kellis before a baby. It's like
Yeah, they're
crazy.
just like straight up babies now. But I think the model is like a baby being held by a mother, like in a little like shirt basket type thing. If I'm not mistaken, I'll
Hmm.
need to check it out again. But I was like, oh my god, is that the first baby? And she's like, yeah, these are the first babies entering the world of Gielinor. So I thought that was charming, and I love the little just I love how much care and sort of like details being added to these new areas. Like Varlamore is just it's gorgeous. It's a gorgeous area, and there's just so many little things that you notice as you kind of wander through, as I've done on my hardcore.
Yeah, I think also like it being the starting area for demonic packs was an absolute slam dunk.
Oh yeah.
I'm like I was just glad to not have another like Mistalin starting route, but it's so rich, man. Like Varlamore is an absolute triumph. I think it's genuinely just so sick.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And having more people, I guess, like get familiar with, because it's the same reason that I was talking about for me making like another Iron, right? Is if you're like all the way at the end game, outside of like Colosseum, doing your like P Moon CAs and like Doom, there's not like a huge amount that you'd like really care about, especially if you're a main, like even mixology. Like I think potion storage, hot take, bit of a noob trap. You can clean your bank, you don't need the extra space. But like the alchemist goggles and like the amulet, you don't really need that much if you're a main. So I think there's like definitely a huge chunk of people that will have like engaged with Valamore a little bit, but not necessarily have like seen like the breadth of stuff that it has to offer. And I think League Six did a wonderful job of showing people that there's like a lot here, and really kind of like shone a light on how much work went into making it happen.
Yeah, it's some beautiful scenery too. Like just again on this account, I spent a lot of time at Veiled Totems, done a lot of Hunter Rumors, done the Colossal Worm Course. Like all these places look so cool, and then a lot of time spent in Alderaan as well, just chopping trees. So, yeah, I'm excited for the future of this game, knowing just how much quality is being put into these updates and stuff, and just how much polishing is going on. I'm super excited for the Summer Sweep Up, Raids 4, all this stuff.
Bro, the tail end of this year is going to be an absolute slammer. Like, and I don't know. 2027 is going to be a banger as well. I'm predicting. I don't know, but I'm calling it.
He knows deep down, which can't ask
I
him
know
about
nothing.
it. Well, Mod Goblin, always a pleasure having you on. I really appreciate you sharing your thoughts, and honestly, just keep up the great work. It's been so cool having you a part of the team and just being so connected to the community. I know obviously it's not like the easiest job, and then having to deal with, strangers online is not ideally the most fun thing ever, especially when it's fully anonymous. But I think you're doing a wonderful job, the whole CM team and everything. And just, I don't know. I think we're in good hands. I say this all the time because I mean it. I wouldn't say it if I didn't mean it. But yeah, I really am just pleased with the current game and just how much we have to look forward to. So thank you so much for being a part of it all.
Thanks for having me, man. And yeah, I don't know. I'm grateful. And thank you for the kind words as well. It's been sweet. I think last year was not my best year, so I'm trying to get me mojo back a little bit. But I don't know. I still love this job. I still love this fucking game.
Hell yeah.
Immensely blessed to be in the position that I'm in.
I don't know. I think maybe in a year or two, I'll have to get you back on and we'll chat some more. And there will be some more reveals that you know all about, but you just can't share anything. And I think that'll be fun. So thank you again for coming on. And for those listening, thank you. And we will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.